Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, beautiful squirrels of the world. How are y'all doing this weekend? We are here to pick up with part 3 of the closing arguments for the Murdaugh trial. Where we left off on part 2 was about halfway through the defense closing. So where we're going to pick up here, we're going to pick up with the defense closing, and then we'll hear the state's rebuttal close, followed by the verdict and sentencing. So welcome back to the low country of South Carolina, and let's get going.
This is a natural response. You don't want anybody to do it, but people kill themselves from being exposed. Don't kill their wife they adore, son, the apple of his eye, as some people have said. That's not.
We'll do it all the time.
That is, I don't have the adjective for that. That is so outlandish. I don't have a word for it.
I love this part. He immediately contradicts himself here.
Totally illogical, irrational, and insane. Those are words I wrote down.
Oh, boy.
For someone to kill their loved ones when their criminal conduct is being exposed. So,
Okay.
you can take that now. Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
So yesterday we heard a lot from Mr. Waters. And I've been in Mr. Waters' position. As I explained, I was a federal prosecutor for a number of years. I've been a state prosecutor, part-time mostly. And I've done his job. It's a very rewarding job. And I hold him and I hold his office in very high esteem. But there just sometimes folks just get caught up in a case, they get a desire to win. They get so intoxicated by the attention that's brought on by the case that they start sort of a win at all cost approach. And I'm going to go through some things that Mr. Waters stated to you that just aren't facts, and aren't supported by the facts and the evidence that you heard. And before I do that, I want to give you a cautionary statement.
Uh-oh. We
lawyers aren't witnesses. I didn't take an oath to stand up here and talk to you. I have ethical obligations about what I can say and limitations under the rules, but I'm not a witness. I'm here to talk to you about the evidence. And the same applies to Mr. Waters. You decide what the evidence is. You decide. And
we're going to take a short break for about 10 minutes.
So I think the jury was probably falling asleep. Remember, on part 2, we watched the first hour and maybe longer of his closing, which has had numerous, what's the way to put it, embarrassing moments, shall we say, including his phone going off. So he's letting the jury have a break, and then we will pick right back up here. Frank's in the house as well. Welcome, Franks. Love you. Let's see if Nightbot will cooperate with your command this time. He's so silly. We love Nightbot, though. Oh, he did. Yay, Nightbot. We love you, Nightbot.
You may continue.
thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday in Mr. Waters' closing argument, he said that the evidence established that Paul and Maggie were murdered with family guns. And that perhaps is his view of the evidence, but that's not a fact. In fact, the state's ballistic expert testified that the 12-gauge shot shells, as you found in the feed room,
in the house,
were fired by the same shotgun. That the shot shells, the things that rolled under the door, were fired by the same gun. That's all he testified to as the shotgun. Now, they have put a lot of guns in evidence here that have nothing to do with the crime. So we don't know what shotgun was used. It could have been a shotgun bought at Walmart that afternoon. It could have been 20-year-old shotgun, but all the evidence, ballistic evidence, is shot shells were fired by the same gun. And that's, don't know that you really need an expert for that, but that's what the testimony was on the shotgun. With regard to the 300 blackout, you'll recall that this guy Paul Greer testified that
He was just delightful.
the cartridges found at the crime scene, and Maggie was shot with a 300 blackout. That the tool marks, it's called tool marks, that the extractor and ejector marks from the cartridges found at the crime scene matched extractor and ejector tool marks on some cartridges found at the house and some found at the driving range, shooting range. And what he didn't say was that where the firing pin breaches that cartridge, which is one of the most reliable.
What motion is he doing right there, guys?
It did not match. No match. And he also did not compare projectiles. There wasn't a projectile found. When I say projectile, that's the bullet. That's the bullet thing. That went into Maggie's body and broke up. But one went into the dog house and was found in the dog bed. And so they have that. And what they did not do is take that projectile and dig projectiles out of the berm where the shooting range was and compare it to see if they match. And that's the most reliable way to do it. Now, in David Owen's notes, he said that the ballistic expert can't be 100% sure until you have the gun. And you heard my cross-examination of Agent Greer, and this tool mark ballistic examination is somewhat soft science. It's come under criticism. It's what they rely upon. Not every investigative lab relies upon it. That's what they did here, but it's not gospel. It's not gospel. Another thing about the 300 blackout, he in his closing, Mr. Waters repeatedly said that Alec bought it. And I assume we're talking about the replacement. I don't know. Alec bought it. Well, Alec didn't buy it. The evidence in the record is Maggie bought it. And he kept saying it's the defendants. And it's not the defendants. The replacement 300 blackout, which frankly no one had seen Paul with it in quite some time except Will Loving on one occasion in sometime in March. It was Paul's gun. It wasn't Alec's gun. Paul's gun. There's at one point in time during his closing argument yesterday, Mr. Waters reenacted a shooting scenario, if you'll recall. And I'll do my best.
Oh, Lord. Courtroom
he stands up here and he says that Alec shoots Paul in the chest one time. And 999,999 times out of a million, that person is dead. He puts his shotgun down and he has a 300 blackout right here because he is so smart and so diabolical that he's going to stage it so it look like two shooters. So he's got a 300 blackout here, a shotgun that he just took his son out, but his son was 1 in a million, he says. 1 in a million comes this way, so Alec has to put the 300 blackout back down, pick up the shotgun, and shoot Paul. Where in the world does that scenario reside other than in Mr. Waters' mind? It doesn't. It doesn't.
Like, I just texted him. I said, sending you your special text that we are alive. And I'm saying that because a few days ago we were live and he was complaining. He was like, how come nobody told me? And it's like, well, everyone else gets notifications, but Twiz, I think, wants a special text. So I just sent him a special text. So we'll see if it works.
There's no evidence to support anything like that. None.
No evidence.
None.
You heard it here.
The fact that he has to go to such gymnastics to come up with the Alex staging a two-shooter theory, I ought to tell you, there's a two shooters out there.
Oh, Lord. Y'all.
I ought to tell you, someone
Remember,
do
we
that.
got emojis for them.
Another curious point in Mr. Waters' closing argument yesterday
Please.
involves Paul's intuitive
Twisted your special
talents. You will recall that Alex informed agents that Paul was an intuitive little dude, referred to him as a detective. That Miriam Proctor, Maggie's sister, said that Maggie referred to Paul as his little detective, her little detective. And in particular, when it came to trying to root out whether Alex was still doing drugs. And then he just sort of left it there. For you to then take it and run with it as if, oh, Paul must have found Alex using drugs. There must have been a confrontation down there at the kennel, and that must have been what happened.
That's not what he
didn't
said.
go that far in his argument, but he laid it out there for you to run with. But that was clearly the implication. And I want to tell you first, there are no facts to support that. None whatsoever.
Lord have mercy.
Let me add another scenario that's equally as plausible.
Oh, my God.
What if Paul the detective learned the source of drugs that were being sold to his dad? What if Paul the detective goes to that drug source, says, cut it out. That's my dad. You're ruining my family. And if you don't, I'm going to tell on you. Turn him in.
Tell on you.
And what if
I'm going to tell your parents.
source is a member of dangerous drug gang?
No, that won't yet.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, the point is, there's no more evidence to support it, and there was no evidence. Those were just plausible scenarios that they were throwing out to you, and that you could think up many equally plausible scenarios. But you have to decide the evidence based on the facts that the state puts before you, not theories,
Right.
not inferences, not speculation,
Cut it out, Armin.
but cold, hard facts.
That's what you say to a dangerous drug dealer, right? Cut it out, or I'm going to tell on you.
Mr. Waters also said that Alex, the master liar, accused Shelley, Smith, Blanca, and perhaps another witness of lying. He never did such a thing. He never accused anybody of lying from this witness stand. Now, I've been around long enough to know that witnesses can misremember things and believe them to be true. And frankly, I'm the biggest defender of that trait in my household. I convinced myself that I remembered something accurately, and I will have an argument with my wife until she shows me photographic evidence that I'm just wrong, and that's what it takes. I mean, that happens. People misremember things. But because we point out
about that
there was an inconsistent fact, that doesn't mean we're saying someone lied. And we never did that. One example is Sister Marion.
Sister Marion.
One example of misremembering.
Sister Marion. That's so funny. Just like Sister Nagel and Brother Nagel.
Sister Marion said that she spoke with Maggie about 7 p.m. while she was at Edisto.
Already said.
And that Alec wanted to come to Moselle to visit her father. Well, we know that her recollection is mistaken because we have cell phone records, we got FBI records, we got her phone bill, we got that shows she was in Mount Pleasant and then she was traveling to Moselle around the period of time where Sister Marion thought she was at Edisto. Did not happen. That doesn't mean that she was lying about that. Absolutely not. That's just how she remembered it. And she also said that when she talked to Maggie, that Maggie was, going to go over and visit Mr. Randolph at Alameda. But we know from the records that Mr. Randolph had already been readmitted to the hospital. I mean, that's in the records. And that Maggie knew it. We've got Maggie's text to Blanca, I think, in the day saying they're putting Mr. Randolph back in the hospital. We're scared for everybody and hope Alec doesn't go down to the hospital. Well, that's the reason I'm pointing it out. This is how Miriam remembered it.
I have no idea
she
why.
remembered it incorrectly. And that happens. because we point stuff out like that, we're not saying they're lying. Now, then the same with Shelley and the blue tarp. She remembers something. We're not sure what.
Are you talking about Metters?
But the evidence clearly
By
is.
the way, speaking of the red, are they wearing the same tie? Look. Are they wearing the same tie, Jim Griffin and Metters? It looks like the exact same tie.
Lying. Now, then the same with Shelley and the blue tarp. She remembers something. We're not sure what. But the evidence clearly is, she says it was on Wednesday, June 16th. And we got FBI cell phone forensics. We've got records, and we got testimony that Alec is in Somerville. He spent the night with his in-laws, the Branstaders on Tuesday, and he stayed there toward the end of the week, and then they went to the mountains at Kiowee. So Alec could not have been knocking on the door of the Almeda house on the morning of June 16th. And Barbara Mixon came in and told you that she relieves Shelley. Shelley works all night, leaves, and goes to work at the school district. Barbara Ann comes in at 8 o'clock and relieves Shelley. And as Shelley recalled it, as the tarp was laid out when she left for work. Barbara Ann came in and said, I didn't see it. No time during that week that when I worked was there a blue tarp. I mean, Shelley remembers something, but she's not a blue raincoat, and it's certainly Alec could not have come over there on Wednesday. Now Shelley also says that he spoke to me about times, and
I don't.
And I am.
Now that you mentioned the tie pins, I don't think that anybody in this entire trial has worn a tie pin. Maybe it's just not low country.
And that bothered me. I called my brother. We're not disputing that. But what she didn't say is Alec told me to say I was here in 45 minutes or things like that. And frankly, it doesn't make a lot of sense because Alec kept saying, you get my phone records, and you'll know exactly what time I was when I was there. And I'll get to this a little bit more in a moment, but
then why are
Mr. Waters keeps talking about, he's hurrying to get over there. He's hurrying to get over there to compress the time so that it looks like he's been gone from Moselle longer than he was. Fair enough argument. I understand his point.
Well, then,
but that point is,
I understand his point. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Evaporates when you're talking about how long you are at Almeda. It doesn't matter if he's there 45 minutes or 20 minutes. Does it really matter?
Yes.
Why? How long he was there? Now, I guess before you had the OnStar data, they could be saying, he said he was there 45 minutes, but he's only there 22 minutes. And he spent the other 10, 15 minutes traipsing through the woods, burying bloody clothes and getting rid of murder weapons. Well, we may have heard that in this trial had we not gotten the OnStar data from General Motors in the middle of the trial, which shows conclusively he drove over there and he drove straight back.
Great, Jen. That helps, not.
Another small point. He said there's biological material on the Polaris. I don't think that was ever tested. It certainly looks like it. But what we've learned in this case is things aren't always as they seem. They thought they had blood on the shirt.
Oh my God, not with the shirt again. There's emotion in line.
On the shirt. And that this biological material showed that Maggie was running toward her baby. Now, I don't know that there's any evidence which way Maggie was running or what she was running to. There's not. I mean, it's a fair inference. And
it's a fair inference. Again, agreeing with the prosecution. Oh, great.
Everyone who knows Maggie would know that's what she would do.
Well,
we're
okay.
Not disputing that would be her.
Wonderful.
That would be her mother instinct.
Oh my God.
And did that probably happen? It probably did. But
oh my God.
It's just stated as a fact. There's no evidence of that.
He didn't state it as a fact. That's why it came up in closing. Okay.
Now, one thing he also said.
Came up in closing, which you're allowed to argue at closing. That's why it's called closing arguments. Not only that, but Jim is agreeing with it.
The cell phone backlight turning on. And I don't have an Apple phone. But so here's the issue. and mine won't do it because I don't have an Apple phone, I don't think. But if you take a phone flat and pick it up, light comes on. And why is that important? Why is that important? Like I say, I'll probably turn this phone off. And
Yeah, your phone better be off.
If I'm making a point that you all know the answer to, I apologize, but it's important that you do know the answer to why this is important. It's important because now that we have the OnStar data, we know Alec drove his Suburban by the spot where Maggie's phone was found at 9:08. Now, there's probably some seconds in there, but 9:08. And we know that her phone is in the woods at that point. So the question is, did Alec throw it out the window at 9:08? And the answer is no, he didn't. Because if you throw it out the window, at a minimum, the display light's going to come on. At a minimum. And when that display light comes on, it registers. These phones say a lot. I was lesson learned in this case. It registers in this Knowledge C database, and it says display light on, and it has a time that the display light came on. Well, there's no, on Maggie's phone, the display light does not come on at 9:08. Okay, so means Alec didn't throw the phone out. And yesterday, Mr. Waters says every single expert testified that the backlight comes on and sometimes it doesn't when the phone is raised aggressively. That's not true. Only one person testified to that. And Mr. Murdaugh, who over the weekend, he works for Charleston County Sheriff's Department. I don't know why they didn't get SLED agent to do it, but he got a phone similar to one that Maggie had, not Maggie's phone, had software, not the same version as Maggie.
Hang on, he was with the Secret Service, not the Charleston County Sheriff's Department or whatever county he said, Colleton County. He's with the Secret Service.
And he spent all weekend throwing the phone on the ground, see what would happen. Or many hours of the day throwing the phone on the ground. And he comes in here and says, hey folks, sometimes the light comes on, sometimes it doesn't. Well, our expert, Mika Sturgis, says it comes on. It comes on. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. But folks, we wouldn't even be having this discussion
if Alex didn't murder his wife and son.
If they had secured Maggie's phone and not allowed not put it in a Faraday bag so that the GPS coordinates on the 7th would not have been overwritten. And they were. So now we got a guy down in Charleston throwing a phone around all weekend. Because they are desperate to prove Alec threw the phone out when he went by the and they got no evidence of that. In fact, the evidence is the contrary. He did not. And the evidence supports everything that he had said from the day he had that interview.
Oh my God, no!
You get the OnStar data, you get GPS data, you get my GPS data, and you'll know I'm not traveling with her phone. Never got it, wrote over it, and now we've got a guy tossing a phone in an office. Doesn't even work for SLED. Not every expert says that. The guys even said that's not his area of expertise. So, let me see if I've hit all.
Mary, where are you at? Day 9. What happened? So Mary's just watching this trial for the first time. Remind us who testifies on day 9. Is that cell expert people?
Oh yeah, the last one's about me. Mr. Waters says that I did an HBO interview in November 2022. And he references some things I said in the HBO interview. Well, I didn't, and he knows I didn't. It was testified about. There's an HBO special. I am on it. I'm not telling anybody to watch it, but that was filmed back in, I don't know, spring, summer of 2022. I'm well before he was charged with murder. I'm not on TV talking about his murder charges. But he wants you to think that, and I don't know why. And I took a little bit offensive to that. I really did.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
And we object.
Oh,
He was.
you guys, y'all.
And we object, because he was.
Amazing.
I was
Amazing.
not being interviewed,
Oh my God. What is that?
not being interviewed in November 2022. Not.
Wow. 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 What a show.
So I've asked why. They can't answer
Tell me
that.
why.
They don't have an answer as to why.
That's what he's saying.
Now how? How?
How?
How could Alec,
Not a how.
in the time period, we know we're going to get to it, but
Oh my God.
how could he have butchered Maggie and Paul without leaving a trace of evidence within a matter of
I
minutes?
can explain it if you need me to.
How? We went from why, now how. And the answer to the how is he couldn't.
Tell
But
me
this is
how.
the wrong question to be asking yourself.
Oh,
Because the question that you are tasked with answering is, has the state presented evidence that proves beyond a reasonable doubt showing that Alec butchered Maggie and Paul without leaving a trace of evidence, all within a matter of minutes?
so Kelly, welcome. Great question. What does this show? This is the closing arguments of the Murdaugh trial. We're on part 3 of closing arguments because their closing arguments went on for a couple days, and this is the defense closing argument.
In a matter of minutes. Have they proven evidence? Do they present evidence of that? Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. He was able to make bloody clothes, bloody guns.
By the way, guys, I think
Who knows how much? Whatever.
I think we're 1 subscriber away from 2K last week.
Here in a matter of minutes, without leaving a trace. Without leaving a trace. Of course they haven't. A reasonable doubt is doubt that causes a reasonable person to hesitate in one of the most important decisions of your life. And here,
Oh yeah, they don't. There's no
there's no
rules.
direct evidence of.
They have their own rules in the Low Country. There are rules, but most of the rules that we're used to seeing do not apply here. It's kind of like the wild, wild west of trials. One of the reasons I love it. But Judge Newman is the GOAT, as in greatest of all time, and he's the judge in this trial, and he is amazing. And he stays out of it until required, right? He stays at, so he doesn't intervene, right? It's only when you don't hear from him unless it's necessary, right? So yeah, but it's awesome.
Doing anything other than he's at the kennel, 8:44, and it's just pleasant family talking about Bubba the dog getting a chicken. So the state's trying to weave this story of his guilt based upon circumstantial evidence. And the judge will charge you on circumstantial evidence, and I have no dispute with what the state put up here yesterday, because that's the law, and you're going to get it. He's going to give you the written document with the charge. And you will see in there that when they rely upon circumstantial evidence, it's as good as direct evidence, but there's some things that it has to do to be as good as direct evidence.
So, Bob, this is really important. So Kelly's never watched this. So DSN says this is my favorite trial of all times. Mine too. Many of you guys have heard this is my absolute favorite trial, along with DSN. So Mary, who was in the chat a second ago, had never watched it either, and she's been going back through the recent series here, the revisiting key testimony, because it's the quickest way to get up to speed, which is the series we're currently on now. Because I've covered it gavel to gavel, but this is just revisiting key trial testimony. So, so you, Kelly, are like Mary, that you both have never seen this trial. Although she said she's on day 9 now. So, I think it's totally still enjoyable, even if you've never seen it, to be here and watch this. Like it's very entertaining, and it's one of the only trials, if not the only trial I can think of, where you can watch it on normal speed and it doesn't ever feel like it needs to be sped up. Anyway, but it's awesome. And, but it's definitely worth also going back through. And again, if you're wanting a shorter version, the key trial testimony is kind of a good way to go through that too. And, I've got the playlist as always for it. So
what it has to do, the circumstantial evidence, is that the circumstances must be consistent with each other. And when taken together, point conclusively to the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt. If these circumstances portray the behavior of a defendant as suspicious, the proof has failed.
Yeah, Creighton's my favorite
Circumstantial
prosecutor.
evidence.
The prosecutor in this trial, Creighton Waters, is my favorite prosecutor of all time also.
So what are the circumstances that the state relies upon? Well, he was at the kennel at 8:44.
This is my case.
Paul last used his phone at 8:48. He replied to a text with a friend about a movie recommendation. Maggie's phone locked for the last time at 8:50, actually 8:49 and 50 some odd seconds, but 8:50.
The other thing I will say for those of you guys who are less familiar, one of the things that is so groundbreaking about this case in terms of the world of trials is this is the first time that proof of life / time of death has been proven based on cell phone activity or lack thereof. This is the case that really took the cell phone data to a whole new level, a whole new world. And it's not just me that says that. There's been plenty of attorneys, including Bob Murdaugh, recently on, I think it was on Lawyer You Know. I had a clip of it saved at some point. But anyway, said as much that like this case was groundbreaking for that. And it's kind of what Hank Brennan is trying to do, but failing at in Karen Reed with John O'Keefe's cell phone. But here, the beauty of it is they have so much cell phone data. And I, I don't want to tangent myself into oblivion here because the master timeline, well, I feel like every trial needs a timeline like the timeline in this trial. And I've never seen it before or after or since. It's the only trial that has a timeline like this one. And the master timeline, as I think I call it, but I think it's also what it's called in the exhibit, is a thing of beauty. And it could move me to tears. And it is incredible. So shout out to Agent Rudofsky for putting that together. Yeah.
But however, her phone recorded significant steps around 8:55.
Speaking up the cell phone activity.
And her phone tried to activate the camera at 8:55. And it registered an orientation change at 9:06. And I think pretty much understand the orientation change, but when the phone goes from landscape to portrait, or this is beats me, but goes from that to that. That
y'all. By the way, I have put that timeline, the Murdaugh timeline, I have put it in the Discord. It's probably under Murdaugh, and it's probably also under Scroll Docs for anyone that wants to check it out. And just even just looking at it visually, it's color coded. It's just a beautiful thing. So
change, but when the phone goes from landscape to portrait, or this is beats me, but goes from that to that.
Hold on,
that
yeah.
is an orientation change. And the phone will tell you. So it did that at 9:06. And they've got 300 shell casings, the extractor and ejector markings matched with casings found around the house and shooting range. So that's pretty much it. And then of the circumstantial evidence of his guilt. Now they want to say, well, he lied about it, so it's consciousness of guilt. But I'm talking about what evidence they have. Put all the circumstances together, prove he shot and killed Maggie Paul, and that's pretty much it.
I want to also reiterate too that there's a lot of sayings from this trial that have now become par for the course in other trials. So for those of you guys who hadn't watched this trial but have heard from people commenting on other trials, things like this: okay, beg the court's indulgence, bring the jury, taking a stand break, flying too close to the sun, a bridge too far, getting out over your skis. I could go on. There's more. Those all came from this trial. Bring the jury, for example, has become just, what's the right word? Ubiquitous, if you will. But there's a lot, like I said, like beg the court's indulgence. Yeah, I just named a bunch of them, but I'm sure there's more than that too. Those all came from this trial.
And how have they established the time of death here? Solely on cell phone use.
Oh,
solely on cell phone use.
And
using the phone or not using the phone doesn't dictate or define whether you're dead or alive.
Well,
I'd say most everybody in this courtroom does not have their phone with them right now. Under the state's theory, as I mentioned before, if they die while they're not using their phone, then they're dead the moment they stop using their phone. That's what they have here. That is their case.
well, that's just really, misstating.
There are a number of reasons that Paul would stop using his phone.
Name them.
First,
good luck with that.
So I got two testimonial clips, one from Rogan. Remember Rogan Gibson? If you'll play that quickly. Doug. This is Rogan
Paul was
testifying
in the middle
about
of multiple
Paul's phone.
conversations, for anyone who doesn't know, multiple conversations that were going back and forth within seconds of each other.
You were asking a little bit about Paul's cell phone usage. He was on it a lot. He was on it a lot, yes, sir. Yeah, and did the battery get down?
Okay. All right.
There's
What is
Judge
the
Newman.
objection?
Not showing the witness, they're showing the defendant while the witness is testifying. I think the testimony was.
What's the legal basis for the objection? All right. Mr. Griffin.
It's a clip from the live feed of this trial, Your Honor. I can't control who is being depicted, but it's the voice, my voice asking Rogan.
Been in trial how many weeks?
6 weeks.
Right, so we're not going to replay the trial.
That's right. It's a clip of a few seconds.
Oh boy.
I sustain the objection.
All right, take it down, Bill.
You down, Doug?
So you will remember that Rogan said that when Paul's phone, and by the way, if you don't remember and you have questions about it, when you're jury deliberations, you can always ask to have testimony replayed for you through.
Really? That's something I don't think I'd caught that before. You can ask to have testimony replayed. If that's true, that is unique to this trial also. Because normally they can't do that. Normally the best they can do is ask for a transcript, but typically that will generate a lot of back and forth discussion outside the presence of the jury. And oftentimes they will be denied that. And partially because sometimes it's not, they don't have it available yet. But I think what he's saying is you can go back and watch it like the court, like what we watch, which is interesting. I mean, we always hear things like, the jury, they hear it once and then that's it. Wild.
Remember, and you have questions about it.
Wow.
When you're jury deliberations, you can
That's different.
always ask to have testimony replayed for you through.
Who coming in to
Play the audio without the video.
have fun fishing, James?
You're asking me,
Yes.
what can you do? I rule on objections.
Look at that. Right there it is. Okay, so here's what happened. Jim said, can we play the audio without the video? And look at Judge Newman's response. You're asking me? Look, watch.
You're asking me,
Yes.
what can you do? I rule on objections.
There it is. I rule on objections. That's it. There it is.
Can you play the audio then, please?
You were asking a little bit about Paul's cell phone usage. He was on it a lot. He was on it a lot, yes, sir. Yeah, and
In other words, because the state didn't object, he's like, I rule on objections. The state's not objecting. Let's go.
and did the battery get down low pretty regularly?
Yes, he would let his phone die sometime or he would lose it.
Well, and when it would get down low, did he have a habit of not using it to try to keep him going all the way out?
Yes, I have seen that happen before.
And have you done that yourself?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Right, and so you'll know from the photographs and the evidence in the case that Paul's phone was at 2%, and it was on low power mode at the time. He was texting this friend of his about a movie recommendation.
everybody be fishing.
Then can you play the audio only of, you remember Nate Tootin, and he testified about Paul putting the phone down when he was working around the kennels.
And how would you describe the relationship between Paul and Alex?
They had a really good relationship.
Would you say that Alex?
I don't think that's the right clip. The so there, Mr. Tootin testified that
Oh my
when
God.
Paul would work, he would put the phone down, forget where it was at times, and that it was pretty common for him to put the phone down at the
He was using it,
kennel
whatever.
so he wouldn't get it wet. And you recall Dale Davis, they brought him to the stand. I think they brought him to the stand to make it seem like the hose was unraveled and then it was used and put back. And we know from the video, and you can see it again, the dog kennel video, we pointed out the hose is on the ground outside Cash's kennels. And Mr. Davis says, yeah, that was not how I left it. Someone had put it down. And then I'm going to show you. Oh, shoot. Got it right here. Doug, can I have the Elmo, please? Oh, that's awful.
We love the Elmo.
Exhibit 503, and what I'm pointing out on top of these two kennels are dog beds. You'll see Exhibit 503. The dog beds are up here on top. And you recall Dale Davis says that when you clean out the kennels, hose it down, you put the dog beds on top. So it's pretty clear from these photos, this photo, that Paul and or Maggie had sprayed out those dog runs and put the dog beds on top, and put the hose away. Alec testified that the Bubba and Grady had on collars, and we see the collars in States 45, and so their collars hanging here, but their collars hanging here, and then there's collars here, and the dogs don't have collars on them in the dog picture. So it's a fair conclusion that after Alec left, when he said he left, that Paul puts Bubba up, Paul puts Grady up after cleaning out the kennels, and then he goes back into the feed room to get his phone, where he was confronted
By the 5'2" assassins who were hiding in the ceiling and wearing goggles.
Or sometime later it happened. I don't know. But they were relying upon cell phone usage for time of death. The coroner said he did the armpit test, which is no test at all. It's just a guesstimate. Can you pull up in evidence? Now I want to talk about Maggie's phone and defendant's exhibit 158, please. So this is Maggie's phone timeline that we put in evidence, and this is going from 8:49 to 9:07. And if you'll just walk through it, you'll see at 8:49:26, last text message read by Maggie. Okay, go to the next one. 8:49:28, backlight off. Go to the next one. 8:49:31, phone locks, remains locked until recovery by law enforcement. It was locked for the last time and never unlocked. 8:53, but on 8:53, the backlight comes on. It's being manipulated. 8:53:12, orientation to portrait starts. 8:53:15, phone begins logging 59 steps. 8:53:20, there's a Siri usage, and the testimony is you can get that by squeezing the button. 8:53:24, the orientation portrait completes, so it switches. And then 8:53:28, backlight is off. Next, backlight is on. Backlight is off again. And it's on again. Keep going. And then 8:54:34, camera use starts. It's activated by touching the camera icon or by swiping left from the lock screen. There was a question as to whether that could be from facial recognition, and Lieutenant Dove said that information resides in the Knowledge C database, but he did not look for it. Micah Sturgis, our expert, looked for it, found it, and came and told you that was not a facial recognition miss. It was from intentionally activating the phone only for 1 second.
Interesting, Kit.
Go to the next slide.
Weird.
Camera usage ends.
Got Discord there.
Go to the next slide. Orientation of landscape starts 8:54:44. It ends, and then 8:55. So the point is, there's a lot going on with Maggie's phone at around 8:55. Keep going. Keep going. And then at 9:03, the backlight goes off. And at 9:04, there's a missed call from Alex. And at 9:04:23, the backlight's off. And 9:04:41, the missed call from Alex ends. So let's back up to, let's go to 9:04:23, missed call from Alex. Okay. And this was the testimony on 9:04:23, and it's important. Alex calls Maggie. And when that happens, you would, her backlight was on. Go back one more. So her backlight is on at 9:03:52. At 9:04, missed call from Alex starts. At 9:04:23, and instantaneously, the backlight goes off. Now, you heard the testimony of that means when that call came in, someone pushed on the side to stop the call. Now was that done by Maggie because she was over on the other side of the workshop where we see those footprints that we heard about that were never really analyzed, and that she didn't want any noise coming through? Or was that some bad guy or bad person has Maggie's phone and stops the call? But something's going on with her phone at 9:04. I'll tell you that. And then at 9:04, the next one is missed call from Alex ends. 9:05, backlight on. 9:06, orientation changes to portrait. 9:07, incoming call from Alex. 9:06:14. Keep going, Doug. And 9:06:52. Keep going. And then at 9:07, her phone stops for good. Now, one of the things that you heard in this case is that orientation change was at 9:06 that we just talked about. And Doug, if you'll go to the if you go to defendants 156, please. And so these are Alex steps on his phone that were registered during this time period. And if you'll go to entry, if you'll look at entry 28, and if you'll pull that out, Doug. All right. So 28, this is between 9:02:18 and 9:06:47. And this is the time period that Mr. Waters in his argument said was scurrying around because he took, just bring it back a little bit more, please.
We're back.
So can we do it so we can see the whole
This is the
line?
busy bee situation here, guys.
That's fine. So that, so here we see line 28 between 9:02 and 9:06. there's 283 steps, and it went 208 meters. So I want you to first, and so they take the position that this is him scurrying around. But if you do the math, which we haven't done here on this document, but 283 steps in 269 minutes, 269 seconds, turns out to be 1.05 steps per second. 0.05. 1.05 steps per second. Multiply that by 60, you get 63 steps per second. And if, ladies and gentlemen, this is a slow walk. 1 step per second. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. This is Alex scurrying around according to the state's case.
Yeah.
And if you look at the distance in meters of the last, when he gets, I guess, to the house.
Who did not have zoning? Who didn't have a closing argument? You might mean his opening statement. Creighton's close was phenomenal, absolutely stellar. Every single moment of it is spectacular. It's totally worth watching again. Yeah, this is dull and not good, and it was not good. But we're nearing the end, I believe, and then we have the state's rebuttal with Metters. But yeah, it's not good in many ways. And neither was his direct on Alex, right? I mean, part of it could be just he's too close to the whole situation, right? Being it's one of his best friends, and he was close with Paul, and it could be he's just nervous. I mean, he's had tons of mess ups so far. A lot of them happened on part 2 of closing arguments, where his cell phone went off, and numerous other issues. It's just kind of all over the place. But yeah.
755 to 855, he goes 203 meters before it stops registering. And then one thing you will remember during this time period, between 902 and 906, at 906, Maggie's phone has an orientation change. Her phone has moved from here to here. But what her phone doesn't have, go to the second page. What her phone doesn't have are steps. And Lieutenant Dove testified that, yeah, it doesn't look like anyone, like,
By the way, for anyone who doesn't remember,
her phone is moving at 906, but there's no steps being registered.
For anyone who doesn't remember Metters' rebuttal close, it's anything but boring. It's so dramatic. This is, he's the preacher's son, and it's like there's a couple jump scares in there. It's amazing. It's unlike any closing you've ever seen before. I can promise you that.
Alex is walking from 902 to 906. So fair to reason that Alec is not walking with Maggie's phone. That's the timeline data that I wanted to review with you. The if you'll go to Exhibit 524, Defense Exhibit 524, please. I think it's, States 524. I'm sorry. Do you have that? So if you'll go to the slide where no, sir, not 38. Do you have the whole document, or you don't? Oh, yeah, we'll drop that. Okay. Well, I mentioned earlier, and so States Exhibit 524 is all the OnStar data. You will see there that he goes by the spot at 908 where Maggie's phone was found, and there was testimony that he sped up after he went by there. he sped up to like from 42 to 45 and went back down to 44 miles an hour when he went by there. He's not speeding up when he goes by the area where Maggie's phone was found, whenever it was tossed. And then they have, a chart or slide that talks about how long it took him to get over there and the speeds that it took. And Mr. Waters was arguing to you that compressed the timeline. The faster he gets over to Alameda, it means that he's gone longer from Moselle, and it gives him a better alibi because, as you know, he's orchestrating this alibi. And so he's driving fast over to Alameda according to their theory. And we graphed it out, and he's driving, he's passing some cars, and he is, he's a fast driver. Okay, so they say, oh, he's compressing the timeline. Compressing the timeline is what they say. Compressing the timeline. But then they say, he drives fast on the way back. Why? He's driving the same speed over there, same speed back. There's no reason to compress the timeline coming back. I mean, you'd want to be driving slow as you can to make it appear you've been gone a lot longer. I mean, he drives the same speed from Moselle to Alameda as from Alameda back to Moselle. It takes him the same amount of time. He's not compressing any timeline at all. And what's the most curious part about Maggie's phone? About Maggie's phone? What's most curious about it is Alec has her password. Alec, if he is wanting to change the timeline, when he calls her phone, he should answer her phone. When he texts her, he should reply to that text to show activity on her phone that she's still alive. If he is manufacturing a timeline by speeding, the easiest way to do it is use both phones, talk on both phones. And he did it. This whole thing about using Maggie's phone, driving Maggie's phone, throwing Maggie's phone out it's such a stretch for them to come in and try to put her phone in his.
I can dispute that really easily. And here's why. Because the only time when he has her phone with his phone is the time when he's trying to say that he's at Alameda, right? Because her phone has been ditched on the side of the road before he goes to Alameda. So if he were to use his phone to talk to her phone while he's still on the property, then, and this is, of course, would have been at the time before he knows about the kennel video, that would kill his alibi, right? He's trying to pretend like he's long gone. In other words, by answering her phone when he has both his phone and her phone in his possession, it would show the ping that he's still on the property. So that's dumb. Just saying.
His hand. And then you start thinking through, why would Alec take her phone and not Paul's phone? Let's start there. Why would Alec take her phone?
I've answered that one too previously.
That's a question I don't have an answer to. It makes no sense. It makes no sense why he would take Maggie's phone. If there's something on there, he knows her password. Put it in. See what it is. We know from all this phone data, her phone was never unlocked. And he had the keys. So if he's taking her phone,
I think he did unlock
that email or to do something with it, he didn't. And so why?
So
why?
I can answer that. So my thought on that, and I've got a bunch of exhibits to illustrate it, but long story short, I think that it was on accident, that he didn't realize the phone was on the golf cart. And when he sped off and he got back to the property at Moselle, he was like, oh shit, Maggie's phone is here. Now what do I do? And then he freaked out. And then on the golf cart, he went and chucked the phone on the side of the road. The golf cart obviously doesn't have any GPS or anything like that. Then came back. So that it basically solves the whole thing, right? The throwing the phone out of the window from the SUV. None of that. I don't think any of that happened. I think what it was the golf cart. He gets back to the house. He's like, oh shit, phone's on the golf cart, right? Hit the key in his pocket, lights up the Bluetooth thing on the car that shows it's connecting, but he doesn't get in the car, takes the golf cart, 30-second skedaddle over there, chucks it side of the road, and her phone does show a backlight thing at that time, then comes back and gets in the SUV to go to Alameda. So there you go. That's the quick synopsis of it.
And these are circumstances that have to be consistent with each other and have to point conclusively to the guilt of Alec Murdaugh, beyond a reasonable doubt. And these circumstances just raise more questions, ladies and gentlemen, raise more questions that we wouldn't have to be dealing with if they had just simply secured Maggie's phone in a Faraday bag on June the 8th when they got it. We wouldn't be here. So we do know from the timeline that Alec left the property at 9:07. Were they killed before he left? I don't know the answer to that. But we do know that if he was in the house when the shots were made down at the kennel, that he would not have heard them. We had decibel testing from Mr. Sutton. Now they were angry with Mr. Sutton's angle test. They were not angry, but they challenged his conclusions on a lot of things, but they didn't touch his acoustic testing. Didn't doubt that. Haven't challenged that. And so if he's in the house and shots are ringing down at the kennel, he doesn't hear them. Now, they say that sometime after 8:44, and they peg it 8:48, 8:50, because that's when Paul last responded to a text from this friend of his, but they ignore the fact that it had to be cleaned up. And I think Buster testified that takes 10 minutes at least to get the dogs in, clean up, and et cetera. And then there's all this 8:55 stuff going on Maggie's phone. But let's take him at their theory at 8:50, after having a pleasant conversation talking about, is it a guinea or is it a chicken, and Bubba, and all right, so 4 minutes later, let's go ahead and kill my wife and my son because I got questioned at the office today by Jeannie Second. Okay, that's their case. So let's run with it and see where it takes us. Well, it takes us that he leaves the property at 9:07. So from the moment, if he's got, if it happens at 8:50, he's got 17 minutes. 17 minutes. He would have to be a magician to make all that evidence disappear. As you heard, under either Dr. Kinsey or Mr. Palmbach, Dr. Reamer and Dr. Kinsey, Mr. Palmbach, and Dr. Eisenstadt, either way, the shooter's covered with blood on Paul's shooting. And that's what all that testimony was about. It wasn't about trying to figure out who's got the right angles. The whole point of that is, while we ended up having to get our own experts, is to prove the shooter is covered in biological material, covered in blood, covered in everything, because of the blowback. And it wasn't until on reply that Dr. Kinsey said, oh, well, there'd be blowback under my version too. Blowback meaning blood, biological material from killing Paul. So the shooter's covered in blood. The shooter's gun is covered in blood. And that there's not sufficient amount of time to clean all that up, make all that disappear. And then call your son Buster.
And Heather's here.
Driving to visit your mother, who he got a call from Barbara Mixon earlier today and said your mother's agitated because your dad went back in the hospital and you might want to check on her. He goes to check on her. He calls Buster.
Angel's here too.
Does he say, hey, Bus?
Yeah,
I
I
just
don't know what that
blew
means,
your
Tony. That doesn't make any sense.
mom and brother up. You should see the damn mess. Are you kidding me?
Greg was here a few minutes ago.
He calls Chris Wilson. Normal conversation. He calls his brother John Marvin, talking about his dad. And then he goes over there and he sits down with Shelly and sits on his mom's dad. And he stays there 20 minutes, not 40 minutes or 22 minutes. I don't know.
So now we're back to the trip to Almeida for the fifth time. I don't know why.
The records show what time.
Why?
But the fact of the matter is, he's got no blood on him. He's acting normal as every day. He is the same old Alec. Yet their theory is he just blew the people he loved the most in this world, blew him away. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the angles that Mr. Sutton did, his reverse trajectories on the shots, and I mean they're having a good time joking about the size of the figure in the pharaoh, saying, "Oh, it must have been a 12-year-old kid. It's 5'2", 5'4", and let them have their fun." But that's not what the testimony was. Testimony was that the barrel of the gun has to be at that level to make the shot into the quail pen. We didn't take the measurements. SLED took the measurements. And so, yeah, could a 6'4" person get down to that level? Sure. And Mr. Sutton says that's not a natural shooting angle. Could a 6'4" person get on their knees? Sure. Shooters are in movement, and a 6'4" person is going to be moving around on their knees? I don't think so. But, the most common sense thing here is there were two shooters. Because there were two guns, and as Mr. Palmbach said, one gun is high capacity, holds 10, 20, 30 rounds. And if you're going down to execute somebody, one gun's enough. Why take another gun that only has 3 shots? And Dr. Kinsey agreed with the angle coming out of the quail pen, so that the angle puts it pretty far away from the door of the feed room where Paul's killed. But it's not our burden. It's not our burden. It's their burden to prove to you, based on circumstantial evidence, that all the circumstances are consistent with each other and point conclusively to the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And those facts are just not consistent. Those facts are just not consistent. I want to say a word about condition of Paul and Maggie, particularly Paul. I'm not going to show you any photos, but I think you would agree that it was so bad. It was so bad. And Alec, in the back of the car, with me in the back of that, you could see me on the camera, sitting there and talking to Agent Owen and Agent Croft. And he says, it was so bad, they did him so bad. Agent Croft misheard that and said, he said, I did him so bad. I think the evidence is everyone who's listened to it and everyone who knows what Alex was talking about around that time says they did him so bad. And Agent Owen was in the car and he doesn't say to you, oh, he actually said, I did him so bad. I think we can put that issue to rest, but that issue points to a bigger question. What would they be saying in this trial if that conversation wasn't videotaped? what would they be saying? We know Agent Croft would be saying, he said, I did him so bad. And then where would we be then? I am grateful to SLED that they videotaped that so that you'll hear it if you have any questions. I don't think you should,
Full SLED.
but they did him so bad. That is for sure. Another thing that we're going to clear up right now is Alec's concern for Buster. You heard that, and you heard that in Mr. Waters' closing. That in the statements that Alec made on the roadside shooting in Labor Day weekend, where he tried to arrange assisted suicide, that he told officers that there's no danger to Buster. Of course, there was no danger to Buster because of that roadside shooting, because he knew who shot him, Curtis Eddie Smith. He knew he was trying to get himself killed.
He's safe.
But from that, there's going, the reason he knows there's nothing to worry about Buster is because he knows he did it. That's what was just argued yesterday.
Yeah. The thing though is that that's also what he said the night of the murders, right? So
Deputy McDowell, in a body cam video that's in evidence, captured Alec speaking to Buddy Hill about his concern about Buster's safety. Will you play that now, Doug? It's in evidence. I don't have the exhibit number.
Can y'all get a police officer with my oldest son in Columbia? Can you call back to the haven't told me yet.
Can you play that again? Because I think the.
Randy, what about Buster? You gotta get Mr. Buddy. Can y'all get a police officer with my oldest son in Columbia? Can you call back to the haven't told me yet.
Did you hear that?
Okay.
Can y'all get a police officer from?
that's an after that. That's after he already called Buster and told Buster to come over to Moselle. So
My oldest son in Columbia. What about Buster? What about Buster? Can y'all get a police officer for my oldest son? Buddy, can y'all get a police officer for my oldest son in Columbia? That's Buddy Hill, sheriff. And they want to come in here and tell you he wasn't concerned for Buster's safety? Once again, I'm grateful Colleton County Sheriff's Department had body cams. Now you know. You know Alec was concerned. You know Alec asked for a police officer for his son in Columbia, Buster. Now I'm almost done, I promise. But I do want to talk about Alec's misstatements about time. Alex told Deputy Owen during the interviews that, well, first, Alec's statements about time are not lies. They were just misstatements. And even, like I said, Deputy Owen says people make mistakes about all the, Agent Owen, they make mistakes about time all the time. And they do. Now, Mr. Waters is critical because Alec was wrong every time he gave a time estimate. Turns out, I think Mr. Waters is probably right about that. Whether the time period is inconsequential or consequential, he's wrong about it. And the and we had brought in, Alec had told deputies in an interview that he got home at 5 o'clock, and that's not true. That he went to work that day at 8:30, that's not true. And that and so he is just wrong on times. But what was consistent whenever he had an interview, he said, you get the records, and it will show what time did this, what time I did that. It will all be in the records.
true. The cell phone records will show all the shit.
Guess what? They are in the records. And when the records show that his time estimate was wrong,
I don't know where Twiz is. He was here earlier.
they jump up and down. The
Jump up and down.
The statement to Deputy Green, he says, I'd gone to I've gone to my mom's for about an hour and a half, and I last saw them 45 minutes. Now that I don't know. I frankly, Frank, don't know if that's wrong or not. I mean, he's talking to Deputy Green about 10:30. Hour and a half from 10:30 is 9 o'clock. I mean, he left. He left at 9. He left at 9:07. But that's that. The question about what he did when he got down to the scene, and he said he ran up to Paul and Maggie, and he left his phone, and then he went back to get his phone, and then he's talking to the 911 operator, and you can hear it, and he says, "I've been up to it now. It's bad." He doesn't remember the sequencing, and I don't think anyone should hold that against him. Mr. Waters gets up here and says Maggie was running to her baby. Alec was running to his baby. And can you imagine what he saw? And is it evidence of guilt that he doesn't remember what the sequencing was in that moment? Is that evidence? Is that evidence of guilt?
Yes.
Or is that evidence of trauma? This is a guy that then went to get a 12 gauge shotgun, and he put 16 gauge shells in it. He knows the difference, but he didn't know that night. And I'm not quite understanding what the state makes of this. Did he not go up to their bodies? Because the forensic evidence sure speaks to the contrary. What we have is
What?
Maggie's DNA all over his T-shirt.
Oh, come on.
And you heard that from
Tim,
Agent
on,
Zapata.
dude.
We have Paul's DNA on his T-shirt. How did he get Paul and Maggie's DNA on his T-shirt if he didn't touch them? If he brutally murdered them, hosed off
With
down there
literally
next
no
to
blood,
their dead bodies,
are you playing
got
devil?
in the golf cart butt naked, drove to the house, changed clothes, went over to his mom's, goes down, calls 911, then searches for Whaley restaurant menu and checking emails, waiting for the police to show up. How does he get their DNA on his body? Because it's on there. Their forensic lab tells you that. Because he went up to them and touched them. And then there's a spot of blood on the Suburban steering wheel that was Maggie's. And we know that the Suburban was never down at the kennel, thanks to the OnStar information. I'm not sure that was an accepted fact until OnStar sent their stuff in, but the Suburban never went down to the kennel until after he returned back from Moselle. So we know the blood got on the steering wheel after he checked Maggie like he said he did on the 911 call. And then there's a spot of blood on the gun that he went to get. And then there's GSR. There's GSR. There's 3 particles of GSR on his shirt, 3 particles of GSR on his shorts, and 1 on his finger. And the SLED agent testified that's consistent with transferred GSR when you pick up a gun. So, but really, we're back to the lie. We are back to the lie. Because that's all they have in this case, is that Alec lied to them when he last saw them. And he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have. And he said, what a tangled web we weave once we start to deceive. And once he lied the first time, he was stuck with the lie, and he continued to lie. And he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have. And he told you, what was going through his mind. probably wasn't rational, but he was in the throes of an addiction, and he just found his wife and son murdered. And he's being interviewed. He'd been swiped for GSR, and he does think David Owen is the guy that investigated his friend. But he was wrong. He told you. Turns out he was wrong. But I thought that's who it was that night. And he was under investigation. He was being accused of obstructing the boating accident investigation. And he's under investigation by SLED for that. And he had all these skeletons in his closet. And he was wanting to get them away from him and looking for the real killer. The state in this case has gone to lengths trying to, through a sleight of hand, convince you of this and show you that, and without convince you of guilt, without showing evidence of guilt, convince you that he murdered his wife and son because of his financial misdeeds were going to come out, which is about the most illogical thing imaginable, and there's no evidence of that. And then the state brings all these shotguns in here, and I'm not going to pick every one of them up, but the forensic evidence on these shotguns is they can't be excluded. Well, okay. They can't be included either, so you know nothing more about these shotguns than you would have the day you showed up for jury selection, because there's nothing to know about them. Can't exclude them, can't include them according to them, but we do know there's no blood, guts, brains on any of the guns that would have been there from the shooting under everybody's interpretation of how Paul was murdered. They want you to think that because you own guns, that you should be viewed differently.
That is not what they want you to think. Oh my God, guys.
I don't know what else to make of that. I don't know what else to make of that. When this trial began with opening statements on January 25th, Mr. Harpootlian asked, why? Why would Alex execute his wife and son in cold blood?
Tell me why.
Here we are, 6 weeks later. And you've heard weeks testimony about Alex's financial crimes, drug addiction, and lies. But after all that, the state has failed to provide a satisfactory answer to this question. Why?
Not that they
The state
have to.
cannot provide an answer to this question because the answer is he would not, under any circumstances, murder those that meant the most to him. Your oath requires that you hold the state to the exacting standard of proof that the state must prove the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Let's all remember.
And when they rely solely
On the stand said he hurts the ones he loves the most. So
on circumstantial evidence, these circumstances must be consistent with each other, and when taken together, point conclusively to the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they merely portray the behavior of the defendant as suspicious, you must find him not guilty. The state's evidence fails to meet these requirements. Circumstances don't point conclusively to Alex's guilt. Far from it. Mr. Waters wants you to believe that Alex slaughtered Maggie and Paul on June 7th and repeatedly lied and changed the story to fit the timeline and evidence. As it turns out, in fact, the state is the one that's been manipulating evidence to fit their theories of guilt, which changed over time from the date of these murders until yesterday. In the absence of forensic science, a reliable investigation, the guns, blood spatter, the time and opportunity to have committed these murders, you're instead left to make inferences about all sorts of interactions and behaviors. Prosecution wants you to view the evidence through the diabolical monster lens that they have tried to paint, but the law requires you to view it through the lens of innocence, where none of these things, individually or taken together, prove conclusively to Alex's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Up until now, you've not been able to say a single word. Can't imagine how frustrating that must be. But soon you will have the most powerful voice in this courtroom. With your words, you can let everyone know that in a court of law, only evidence and the burden of proof matters, not gossip, innuendo, opinions, and most of all, not theories layered on top of speculation. With your words, you can let the state know that they don't get to obtain an indictment by misleading a grand jury and then bring you before you a case built on theories, speculation. There are two words that justice demands in this case, and those two words are not guilty. The oath you've taken in this case is to follow the law, to follow the Constitution, and to hold the government to the burden of proof. And it requires a verdict of not guilty. On behalf of Alex, on behalf of Buster, on behalf of Maggie, and on behalf of my friend Paul, I respectfully request that you do not compound a family tragedy with another. Thank you.
So the thing is that I think that this emotion is real because for anyone didn't know this, he's way too close to this case, part of the problem, right? Longtime friend of Alex, knew Paul, knew Maggie, knew them all. So this emotion I think is genuine.
Requires a verdict of not guilty.
But sadly it's misplaced in the sense that Alex didn't do it. So
On behalf of Alex, on behalf of Buster, on behalf of Maggie, and on behalf of my friend Paul, I respectfully request that you do not compound a family tragedy with another. Thank you.
every time someone asks if Twiz is still here, Twiz says he's still here. So I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll send you to the jury room for a break.
He might be playing Dark Souls. So they're going to have a break. So then we get into the state's rebuttal. Get ready for this, guys. If you haven't seen this, this is something very different. All right. Buckle up. This is going to be your low country of South Carolina courtroom theater, old school style at its absolute best. All of the theater, all of it. Get ready. Amazing. It's going to be like attending church on Sunday morning. Baptist church.
Jury guy there. Can they bring the jury?
Ah, there it is. Where'd it go? Where's my thing? Hold on. Oh my God, where is it? Here it is.
Bring the jury. Bring the jury.
There it is. Judge Newman. Oh, it's epic, all right. Couple jump. Just be forewarned. There will be a couple jump scares here as well, guys.
Thank you.
All right, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the state gets an opportunity to do a rebuttal. Mr. Metters.
Police and court.
All of the
Good
drama.
afternoon. On behalf of Attorney General Alan Wilson, Deputy Don Zelinka, Deputy Attorney General Craig Mortars, and this entire team, and I want to name them all, but thank you for being here. Thank you for the attention you've given this case. Being a juror is not an easy job. I'm not a jury watcher. I don't sit and stare at jurors, but goodness knows we've been here 6 weeks. I have looked over occasionally, not to pry, but I've noticed when I have looked, you've all paying attention. So thank you. 6 weeks. Thank you. And I'm not going to be that long.
Those of you guys who are dog lovers are also going to especially love it.
Clerk, Ms. Hill has done an outstanding job
Fuck.
bringing the world to Colleton County,
Oh,
bringing the
fuck.
world right here.
Forgot about that part.
The hospitality, her grace.
What did you guys hear? I forgot about this. He's complimenting Becky Hill, who is just posted bail recently. We covered that.
Has done an outstanding job bringing the world to Colleton County.
Wow.
Bringing the world right here. With the hospitality, her grace. making everything as convenient as she can. But the one thing she didn't do and couldn't do is give you a booklet on how to be a juror.
I don't think so.
5.5 weeks ago when y'all got here, 6 weeks ago, she didn't have that pamphlet for you because they don't exist. There's not a book on how to be a juror, but you have been preparing for this moment in this courtroom to decide this case your entire life.
I love that. That's fucking powerful, guys. Let's listen to that again. That's fucking powerful right there.
Have that pamphlet for you
Candace,
because they don't exist.
that's powerful stuff.
There's not a book on how to be a juror, but you have been preparing for this moment in this courtroom to decide this case your entire life.
Yes.
And it's called life. It's called living. It's called experiences. It's called interacting with your spouse, your children, your neighbors, your coworkers, your good experiences, your bad experiences, evaluating people and deciding what's credible, what's believable. It's true in every case I've ever tried in my 34 years of doing nothing but murder cases. Credibility, believability. And I agree with Mr. Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked at this case the first time, I said to myself, this is a CSC case. Now, in our world, that means criminal sexual conduct. It's not a criminal sexual conduct case. This is a common sense case. And you didn't leave that common sense with you when you came here 6 weeks ago. It's with you now. It's been with you during the 6 weeks here, and you're going to take it back into the jury room. I've been listening yesterday and today, and we all have, about law enforcement didn't do this, law enforcement didn't do that. I think they actually said they fabricated evidence, putting law enforcement on trial. I once called Mr. Harpootlian in a trial an automatic smoke screen machine. I think what the defense is doing in this case is more like an eclipse. You remember that eclipse on August 17th of 2017, where it kind of got dark for a little bit, and the birds started chirping, and you felt like it was dark, and then it cleared, the eclipse went over, and the light came back. That's what the defense is doing, taking you away from the facts, from the credibility, and saying, wait a minute, there's an eclipse here, there's a smoke screen here, look at that. And somebody said the word offensive. I find it offensive that a family with a great-grandfather, a grandfather, a father, Sylvester Randolph Murdaugh, who was good to me when I was a young man, prosecutor. He knew I wanted to do this as my job. He knew I cared about this job. This is the best job in the world. I tried to be solicitor 3 times as long. It doesn't get any better than this job. And I find it offensive that the defense, through the defendant, who was also a part-time solicitor, is claiming that law enforcement didn't do their job. Listen to me, please. Didn't do their job while he is withholding and obstructing justice by not saying, I was down at the kennels. I was down at the kennels. I was down at the kennels. And he's going to blame everybody else. Is that offensive? Is that offensive? Mr. Griffin said a minute ago, can you imagine coming up on the scene and seeing, can you imagine not telling law enforcement, lying that I was down there and I saw him? I was right there. Why wouldn't you tell him that?
And I want you guys to notice he has no notes, and he literally is just going to pace back and forth like this in front of the jury. This, again, very this is Southern Baptist preacher style, right? On Sunday mornings. Like, that's literally what this is. He's not even really rebutting anything that was brought up. I mean, for the most part, it's not like, usually what you'll see you have your defense closing, and if they make certain good points in the state's rebuttal, they will have jotted down those points, and then they will like purposely go back and discuss those points. He might touch on a couple of them, but for the most part, he's just improvising and speaking like quote unquote from the heart, which I think he actually says at some point during this closing, and he mentions his upbringing and stuff like that. So yeah.
Maybe get some more evidence. Did you hear somebody? No, I wasn't even down there. Credibility, believability.
But I think
It really does
also,
sum it up.
he's relying on
Remember-
Creighton's closing was masterful, and it was quite. It was long, but it was thorough. It wasn't any longer than it needed to be. It's one of my favorite closing arguments of all time, and he addressed all of the issues that were mentioned in the defense. And I think that matters here is trusting the jury that they were with the state. Like, I think they were falling asleep during the defense closing. Again, Judge Newman had to take a couple breaks. And so he's just really going like, he's going for like the heart element of it. And Creighton really, did all the heavy lifting, if you will, in terms of proving the elements of the crimes. And I mean, it was great. So anywho.
Credibility, believability. That really does sum it up. You remember 6 weeks ago today when Mr. Waters' fantastic opening and talked about direct evidence. And direct evidence is something you know it when you see it. It's evidence you gather with one of your senses. You hear it, you feel it, you smell it, you touch it, and you come in here and tell witnesses, hey, this is what I heard, what I felt, what I smelled, what I touched. But do you remember when he was describing circumstantial evidence? There was a storm that day coming. Part of his theme, the storm just happened to come. And you could hear it coming. And then during part of his opening, you remember it started raining? You could hear it. You could feel it.
Yeah, that was wild. It actually started raining during the opening.
It's almost like circumstantial evidence morphed into direct evidence. And that's what happened in this case. Circumstantial evidence became direct evidence in many instances. This case is about two things. It's about being real, and choices. My mama gave me a book when I was a little boy about the Velveteen Rabbit.
Yeah.
Was actually going off to college, dealing with people and learning about people and tough times in life. Go get the Velveteen Rabbit and read it if you haven't already. But she just put in the front of that book, and I love my mama. Always be real. Always be real. In this case is about that defendant never being real.
Truth. That's facts right there, man.
And choices, which I'll get to at my end.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, they blame everybody but Alex. Everybody but Alex. Let's go back to the first. I'm not going to bring it out. But this back here, the press release was sent out. There's no danger. There's no danger. What did Alex not do? They showed a tape there. He's asking the sheriff, I think, call Buster. First time he tried to call Buster, took the sheriff a while to get out there. You know when the first time he called Buster? It's about 40 minutes. Well, actually, he texted him, didn't even call him. Wasn't his first thought. Wasn't the thing after he did 911. Right. It was later. Perhaps even when some of his friends had gotten there. Oh, don't call. No, right off the bat, if this happened, call my son.
That's what I said.
Call him. Buster, stay where you are. You with your girlfriend up there in North Charlotte? Go. We got some people after us. That's what's real. Don't you? You go to the police station right there. And what else do you do too? You don't talk about being real. What do you do? Y'all, I just left my mama. She's with Shelly. Get somebody over there. Get them over there. If these people are out here to kill us, get them over there. Go, please, take them right now. They're by themselves. I can't do that. That's why I took the guns. I can't tell them that. That's what's real. And he brings up the boat case right away.
Mm-hmm. Sure
Right
did.
away. A year and a half
Sure did.
previous. It's coming up for a hearing. Nobody's thinking about that boat case. Is that
Right.
honest? And right then, he's using it to throw off. Here's your first suspect. Does that make any sense? They have a hearing coming up. They're going to look into resolve this thing. Nobody's out there thinking about a boat case on a Monday night. Anybody upset about that? Think about all the facts that would have to happen. They'd have to know both, as Mr. Waters said, somebody in the boat case would have to know that they're both there. They'd have to know they were there. They'd have to know that Alex is just wasn't there. Oh, no, wait a minute. That he was there, but just for a little bit and went back up to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd have to come. You know what? We don't need a gun. There'll be guns there for us to use. Yes, and that's great.
I'm going to put the closed captioning on just for some of you guys. This accent might be a little bit difficult. So let me put these on. All right.
Circumstantial and direct evidence. I'll get to that.
I mean, it's a strong accent.
They'll have guns there for us. They'll have guns there for us. We can use them. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Let's talk about murder.
All right.
Murder is the intentional, malicious killing of another living, breathing human being with malice aforethought.
Well,
What's malice? Y'all know what malice is? It's the name malice. It's the evil wickedness one person shows to another. You know how long it's got to exist? Just like that. At the pulling of a trigger. 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 Malice aforethought. It can be expressed. Rarely happens. I'm going to kill you. Or it can be inferred. It can be inferred with the use of one gun. There's no claim of self-defense here. They're claiming they weren't there. It can be inferred two guns. Malice aforethought. And we don't have premeditation in this state. We don't have to prove premeditation. We don't have to prove motive. I think it's been proven. His world was collapsing. Mr. Griffin goes, does that make sense? In his mind. His world's collapsing. His world's coming down. This was the only way he could save. It's the only way he could save Alex. But if that motive, well, I don't know, is that enough? Don't know. We don't have to prove motive. We're certainly there. That's one explanation. But if he's down there and he's angry, this don't sound like a real jovial there. Bubba! Don't let me forget about Bubba. Bubba! Come here.
Candace, how's the COVID doing? Are you doing better?
Maybe you just got angry. Maybe you got angry at Paul. Maybe you got angry, you started all this with the boat case. And maybe he just lost it. Maybe you just lost it. Maybe it looked like a suicide. And then Maggie came and he had to shoot her. I don't know. Only one person knows.
And that was one of the jump
And
scares.
that's
There's
why
another one though.
we've got the motive. That's why we say he did it. But we don't even have to have motive. Just angry. He did it. Nobody else could have done it. Nobody else did do it. I'm going to get to that. And that's how we prove beyond, I want to say all doubt. But our burden's only reasonable now. But losing it And then you get the question, well, have you proven malice? Well, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. 2 shots to Paul. Malicious. First one didn't do it. The second one finishes him off. 5 shots to Maggie. Not an accident. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots, maybe 5 shots, depending on whether this one's running through. That's malicious. So if you find he killed him and you get the malice, I don't think there's any dispute in there about that this is a malicious killing. But I've got to go over that with you. Malice of forethought. And then the burden on us in this case, as in every case that's tried in this wonderful land of ours. That's why this is so great. I agree with, is beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm going to borrow one of these waters if that's okay.
I'm going to borrow one of these waters.
It's not beyond all doubt.
I'm glad to hear that, Kim.
If that's the case, this courtroom wouldn't have been here historically as long as it had. The law doesn't describe that. And listen to his honor.
Raj Neiman?
And I'm not playing up to him. He is the best.
Yes.
He's the law. Listen to him when he reads the law. Beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not beyond all doubt. We can't do that. It's beyond a doubt that would make reasonable folks hesitate to act. I was trying to retrial a case years ago and reading reasonable doubt from this ex-solicitor, Solicitor Wilson, I'll give him credit, describing reasonable doubt. And he said, sometimes, questions are just questions. You can't answer every question, and the law doesn't require it. If after hearing all the evidence, or if you're firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt, you must find him guilty. If, on the other hand, you're not firmly convinced, then you must find him not guilty. He goes to see his mother. He goes, and you see the OnStar taking him up to the side, over near the smokehouse. We submit to you that's when he went to hide the guns. It's common sense. We submit to you that there's a driveway there. Nice pavement. You can go look at it. Nice paved driveway.
You can go look at it.
Submit to you when he came, it was 9:30 at night. Testimony is very unusual, very rare. Kind of funny, Miss Nixon, who testified earlier, we talked to her recently, didn't remember any of the conversation, but said she called and said he told him your dad's not doing well. Well, he didn't go over there that afternoon when he got the phone call, when his office is right near there. Go see him then. He didn't do that. He waited to 9:30. I don't know if anybody's got any folks that are suffering from Alzheimer's, but when they're asleep, they're tired. He wasn't going to love his mama. He wasn't going to be with her. He was going there because he loves Alex. He loves Alex. And he was going there to create his alibi. At 9:30 at night, use your common sense. And you remember, she said he called. What happened after that? Well, it was about 5 minutes or so. At first I was thinking, that's when he was going to hide the gun. And the time frame over there is so important, not for how long he was from left to come back, but it's how long he was in there with Shelley. How long he was in there. Because that's when he was hiding the guns. The guns are missing, y'all. He was hiding the guns. And what did Shelley say? He didn't stay long. 15, 20 minutes. He left.
Well, the other thing
And later that
with the GM OnStar data that came in during trial, that showed exactly where he parked his vehicle too, and it was right by that tree line. So there's that.
week, he kind of later that week, and I don't know which one in my mind right now, I'm so tired. But one of the days she came by, I think it was after the visitation, he says, Shelley, you remember I was here about 35 or 40 minutes. Y'all remember looking at her up here on the stand?
Oh my God, look at him.
And she got visibly upset. I said, what's wrong? Ask her, what's wrong? What's wrong there? Was he there 35, 40 minutes? No, sir. Why are you upset? It's a good family. You think she knew right then? He's coming back to say, hey,
I do. I
she's
think
35, 40 minutes now visiting my mom. Shelley said, no. No, you weren't. So upset that she calls her brother, police officer in Yamasee. You think she knew right then? And that's real. That's real. Shelley's real. You saw in her body language is so important, right? Body language is so important. We're talking about the defendant. All our body language. You see Shelley's. And then one day that week, never before, never, ever, 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 ever before, it's 6:30 in the morning. Doesn't call. He didn't need a timeline to create for that one visit. Didn't want a timeline. Didn't want a record of that. He comes to see Shelley. You ever been over that time before? No. What was he carrying? It was some blue vinyl like. Remember I tried to what? It's like this. What did you think it was? A tarp. I don't know what it was.
our raincoat.
And they try to gloss over it now. Tell you one thing they didn't gloss over. You remember when she was on the stand? I said, well, have you talked to them? Have you talked to their investigators? Yes, sir. Did they record you? Yes, sir. Can I have a copy of it? And then we came back and we got a copy. And two investigators, they were worried about it then, went down and talked to her. And talked to her about her times and ran times by her and asked her if she'd ever seen anybody in this blue coat. Have you ever worn it? They were worried about it. Because that's great circumstantial evidence. It kind of morphs into direct evidence. I saw him coming at 6:30. You even heard, they asked one of the experts, well, could it stay on there for 5 years, 10 years? Sure. This was days after the murder. Shelley sees him come in with a blue something.
Well, this is the tarp raincoat that they found a fuck ton of GSR in. And so the suggestion is that he was carrying, he came back to get the firearms that he'd been hiding on the property at Alameda, and then he carried them wrapped in this blue tarp raincoat thing and then hid them from there. Remember, they've never been found. To this day, they've never been found.
Where'd he go? He went upstairs. Why? I don't know. Did you see it later? Thought I saw it on the chair. Can't answer every question. Miss Mixon sure didn't see it the next day. Now ask her, was there another tarp there? Well, there was a blue and silver tarp. Picture of it too. That wasn't it though. This was all blue. And the only other blue tarp that's in evidence, and I let it go in just so I could argue this right now, is the tarp that they showed Shelley that they got from Kmart. That's not real. This tarp, no. Looked like that. I don't know what it was. He had it bundled up. Well, lo and behold, when we find out this information, and they try to make a big deal about it, I think it makes it more pure. She's at a traffic stop or an accident or something, tells the police officer, I forgot about this. You can't make it up. So they get a search warrant and they go search. And lo and behold, crumbled in the closet is a blue vinyl something where you pull it out and it's this jacket. You see how evidence of a fact and another fact that leads to the fact in question? I don't know why he put it in there. I don't know why he killed his wife and son. I don't have to say why. I think he did it to protect the one he loved the most. The one he really loved the most,
Him.
so he could keep his lifestyle
Yep.
and not be embarrassed financially.
Great point. The one that Alex loves the most is him. It's not his family. Yep. Yep. Yep.
I think he did it to protect the one he loved the most. The one he really loved the most, so he could keep his lifestyle and not be embarrassed financially. And he wanted to keep going and loving Alex. I don't know why he kept that jacket. Maybe it was Solicitor Murdaugh's jacket. Certainly consistent. It might have been in that truck. I think one of the family said he kept a lot of stuff in that truck. Might have been out in that something else. I don't know. But he brought it back in there and hid it. 6:30, days after the killing. And what's inside? Wait a minute. What's on the outside? Well, there's a little bit gunshot here and there. What's on the inside? The inside. Minimum 38 particles. It got so much that Megan Fletcher finally said, you know, we get, I can't remember the term right now, we get so many, I just stopped. I'd have been there for days. Gunshot residue. Inside the rain jacket, the blue type garment that Shelley said, I saw him carrying something like that. He got rid of the guns and he's hiding it there for some reason. Thank goodness he did. Because thank goodness for Shelley for bringing that in. That's what he disposed of the guns with. And went out of town. He said he left, and before that, she thought he'd left. He came back and he had moved to ATV, and then he said he was in another truck and he came back, then he left. He's disposing and hiding whatever he was doing with that evidence. Only one person knows. But that blue rain jacket, that tarp, is incredible circumstantial evidence that we ask you to consider when you go back there. Is Shelley making that up? How could she make that up? How could she know there'd be a blue tarp in that closet? Same closet, he went, same stairs, he went upstairs. We went upstairs. I can't explain the tarp on the chair. Don't have to. We can't answer every question. That doesn't mean it's not reasonable doubt. She saw a blue tarp light. It was in that closet. It's got gunshot residue on it a few days after. Maggie and Paul were brutally murdered. And that's consistent with every reasonable hypothesis. And you know the thing he told Shelley? The night when they were talking. You're getting married, aren't you? You remember her saying that? You getting married? If you need any money or help with it, let me know. It's incredible timing. Oh, and your job, don't you work in school? You know, I've got friends down there. I can help you on that if you need.
Is Alex trying to influence their what they will call the law enforcement officers?
Can you make up the sequence of facts that lead to the conclusion he's trying to get her to say, I was there longer. I wasn't outside longer. Blanca. Blanca loved Maggie. I didn't realize that really until I talked to her just a few times. I met her years ago at a federal prison. Remember when I saw her? Remember her name. But you know, even when Blanca was quit working for him for a while, and you remember she had health problems and said she saw Maggie on the road somewhere, and they kind of pulled off and just talked, just called up. Blanca cared about Maggie. Knew her so well, she knew what she wore to bed and what she didn't wear to bed. And that kind of bothered her about the clothes that were laid out. Some undergarments, which she knew she didn't wear. But Blanca's texting, Maggie's texting Blanca on June 7th. And in one of his statements, and I'm gonna get to those, he said, you know, Maggie wanted to come. She wanted to come. Well, no, sir. No, she didn't. She was having working on her other stuff. He tries to say in here today, look, she was in Charleston. She was going back to other stuff. Remember the text to Blanca, well, I left the workers there, but I guess it'll be okay. He had said, come, I want you to come. She didn't want to come. We also know that from her sister Mary, who had a little regret in here today. Didn't hear much regret from over there. But you know who regretted? Who was real? It was Mary. I encouraged her to go. She didn't want to go. They got close. You know, it's like siblings. Jane, Marshall, James. I had to get my siblings on the record. We love each other. But she had that relationship. You know, we weren't close. Then we got closer as the kids got older. I got going. We were close. We talked. One of her best friends. And she told her, why don't you go on over there? She regretted that.
That part's
But she
important.
killed her battle.
But that's important because of the whole idea that Alex lured Maggie and Paul over there. Maggie didn't want to go, but her sister Marion convinced her to go.
Refutes his lie. Oh, she wanted to come. She wanted to come. No, so you wanted to come.
Mary?
Why? Had he already planned it out?
Yeah.
Was the world collapsing?
Yep.
He didn't have to. We don't have to prove he did. But he got her there. She wasn't planning on being there. Blanca's got the food ready. She leaves. Let's stay on the real train for a minute. She goes home. She gets a call sometime that night. And this is real. What does she do when she hears? She drops the phone.
Mhm.
Her husband had to get on the phone. She dropped the phone, real emotion, because she cared about Maggie.
Yeah.
That's real. And you remember she described that day when she left, Alex leaving, and I put his shirt up, got his collar, helped him with his, I assume it was a blue jacket, I don't know. Described the shirt. Remember, just kind of tucked it in. And now on Alex's second interview, when he's confronted by David Owens. And they actually showed him the video of the tree. They showed him that. Did you change? When I saw you that night, you were wearing shorts. When did you change? And you remember what Alex said on that interview? When is that? You sure that? When is that time? Was that? And then he told him the time, 7:44, whatever it was. He said, well, I guess I changed after that. Well, those are the clothes he was wearing when he murdered Maggie and Paul. Those are the clothes. And what does Blanca tell us? That was on August 11th. She said sometime mid-August. I didn't know this. I got it. You can't make it up. Sometime mid-August, he comes to see her.
Can't make
You
it up.
remember that shirt when I left that day? I said, no. I mean, yes. It's a Vinnie Vine shirt. You weren't wearing a Vinnie Vine shirt. I fixed your collar. He tries to get her to tell what he was wearing. He tried to say, no, you weren't wearing that shirt. That Columbia shirt, you've got one of those. But guess what? I ain't seen that one since. I have not. Blanca and Shelley. That's great circumstantial. Did you ever see that shirt again? Never saw that shirt. Ever. Where's the shirt? You know what? I forgot about Shelley. I don't think this was mentioned. When Shelley sees Alex that night, you remember what she said about his clothes? Shorts, shirt. What did she say about the shoes? Sperry time.
Hey, shut up, man. Look, you got your own emoji. You can't.
When Dave Owens and those get there, when I think I accidentally put some of the dust out on those aren't Sperry shoes. He's changed his shoes again. I'll get to you in a minute why that's important. From the one to visit his mom, he's got Sperry type shoes. He comes back and puts on the tennis shoes. Why? I think, is she making that up? Blanca said, I've never seen the shoes before. When I got there the next morning, there was a t-shirt looked like it'd been pulled down, fell on the floor. Where does he keep it? She washes her clothes. Those are clean shorts up there. This is where he kept his shorts. Did he wear these shorts much? No, he didn't wear them much, but she knows that family. She knows where the shorts are, where the shoes are. Do you remember the Sperry shoes? Yeah. Did you see those? Never saw them again.
Never saw him again. Disappeared just like the guns.
Never saw that shirt again that he was wearing in the video. Never saw it again. And when he confronted her at the house about what he was wearing, yeah, she had real feelings and told y'all about that and told law enforcement about that. Is that real? And why is that important? Because it goes back to credibility and common sense. Those were clean clothes that Shelley had washed. Excuse me, that Blanca had washed. And when we get there on the scene that night, you remember Laura? Miss Rutland. She's sitting in the back. David's in the front. Alex in the front. His lawyer's on the side. And you know, it's something else I don't understand. Your wife and your son have just been killed, and you're worried about having a lawyer around. Everybody said, well, you know, just sled agents. We need to have a lawyer around. Really? My wife and son have just been butchered, and I'm worried about having a lawyer. But they did. And that threatening, overbearing,
I don't get it,
cheating, manipulating.
Very weird. Kane
When I asked
is in the
Dave,
minority here.
his hand on his shoulder. So did Laura.
Literally
What
the
are you
only
doing?
person I know.
I got a heart. Is that rushing to judgment? I got a heart. They didn't rush to judgment. They were saying, tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. Well, and he starts looking at his phone. You can check my phone, the alibis that he's created, that he's doing. And he says, I went and ran. I got on my knees over here. Went and ran, and I tried to take the pulse of Paul. I'd still be on the ground arguing myself. And I tried to turn him over. Trying to check his pulse. Really? I went to Maggie, checked her pulse. And you can't do that in the 20 seconds he's now trying to say you can. You can't. And they've tried to change that. And he never did it. Because what did she say? What did Miss Rutland say? He was clean. He was clean. He was clean. He was clean. He washed up. Yeah, and you hear the water running in the dog video. You hear it. He'd washed up. And this phone, tried to make a big deal about this phone that you do see right afterwards when we know he was down there. There's some movement on Maggie's phone. But every expert has said, just because if one phone's down here and the other one's walking, you're not going to have steps on that phone. He took Maggie's phone, the golf cart, however he got, drove back up to get those shorts and that shirt. And yes, you can get it and manipulate it and call to see if you made a call, put it down. That's not going to record steps on that phone because it's not moving. But that doesn't mean it wasn't with his phone.
Uh-huh.
Don't fall for that.
Yeah.
That's not real. Every expert said that.
He's right about that. That's exactly what it was. Golf cart.
Every expert said that. And doesn't that make sense? You can grab it, see, make a call, put it down. You keep walking, it's not going to record if it's there. If it's in the car, it's in the Suburban. And I'm getting to that. So what happened? And this is why I asked Miss Rutland. And they're bringing in drug use. If he did as many pills as he said, he'd be dead.
Uh-huh.
Can't take that many pills.
That's right.
That's your common sense.
Mm-hmm.
But why I ask her this, I'm asking, I want to look at every one of y'all. Tell me what he was like in that car. You've got the video. Did he appear to understand you? Yes, sir.
Yes,
Were his answers timely? Yes, sir. Were they subject matter appropriate? Yes. Do you understand him? He can understand you. Look, he's thinking. He's opening the door. Was he in his right mind?
Yes, sir.
Of course he was. And why is that so important? He says He didn't go down there. Is that enough? Yes. With everything else, that's enough. I never went down there. He's in his right mind. I never went down there, Dave. I never went down there, Lord. I never went down there after supper. I stayed up. I took a nap. He goes and taking a nap from 6-7. The next time they met, 6-10, I took a nap. August 15th. You sure you're down there?
Yeah.
Or up there taking, yeah, I took a nap. I never went down there. Never, ever, ever. You think he would have taken the stand and said, you know, I
Yep.
was down there.
Fact.
No,
Fact.
if that video hadn't come out.
That's right, sir.
Well, no.
Yep.
Now, under Mr. Waters' cross-examination, I lied. Why'd you lie? I wrote it down. I'm still not clear. I had paranoid thoughts. Usually I can take a deep breath and get through it, but I couldn't, so I just lied. Once I lied, I continued to lie. And he continued and continued and continued until 627 days later when he took this stand, the first time he'd ever told anybody. Anybody. He told his family, he told his friends, he told everybody, and they believed him. I wasn't down there. Why is that so critical? That's the time of death. That's when it happened. That's what the records show. That's when the conversation, yes, it is important. Paul, who uses his phone all the time, Paul is in a conversation about the dogs, interacting. Well, send me the picture. He does. And then it stops. Yes, that's what it happened. And then Maggie's phone. A little bit text. She reads that text. I think she went to her car. Y'all decide. Nobody knows. One person knows. She goes to her car. And she's got some rings there she's putting back on. I think she's got 2 rings there, and she's putting on another in the car. Maybe they've been working in the kennels. There's one shooter. There's only one shooter. And she hears that shot, and she comes back around. She hears the shot. She reads the last text y'all have in there. I think she opens the thing about Solicitor Murdaugh. He doesn't. And then you don't see anything else. You don't see anything else on the phone. So is that common sense? Yeah, that's when they were gone. Yes. Yes. When they interact so much. Yes. That's common sense. And that's why it's so important. You want to help law enforcement? You're in law enforcement? I was down there. Y'all know what? I was down there. I didn't take that nap as long as I did. Did you hear anything? Why would you not give that information? Okay, then the 10th, with his lawyer, Mr. Griffin, in the car. Did you go down there? No. Look at him. Is he coherent? Is he under the influence of anything? Is he withdrawing? No. I want to help you. I want to help you. And then on the 15th, here's this video. Here's you in the tree. Now, Rogan says he thought he heard you down there earlier. Well, I don't think so. Why not say it then? Think about it. Well, it's just Rogan's word. Does that make any sense? Just Rogan's word. No, sir, I can handle that. You made a mistake, like Shelley did. Like Mom couldn't close. No, sir. I can handle that, though. But when the video comes out, he's stuck. He's stuck. I'm going to try to wrap up. Yeah. Yesterday morning at 2:53 in the morning, I don't sleep much during trials, but I kind of woke up. And what he did when he took the stand was corroborated that he's a liar. He corroborated the fact he doesn't tell the truth. The one thing that was more important than anything. And you know, they're putting these law enforcement on trial, talking about blood evidence, talking about other things that were presented to the grand jury, which that blood evidence was investigated and the state didn't offer it. That's what you do in your prosecution. Didn't try to offer it. Now they're trying to put us on trial for doing our job. Think about that. Blame everybody else. Look, they looked into this and it didn't turn out to be. So now we're going to blame them. We didn't try to present it. Isn't that ironic? They're now jamming us for doing our job. jamming us for doing our job. All the evidence of the guns. And I'm gonna get that in there. Timeline, the incredible timeline, his lies, all of that, the gunshot residue, all of that's presented. And do we make mistakes? Yes. And that happens in life. But you don't lie and misremember being at the scene of a murder when you said you weren't even there, or being at the scene where your family was brutally murdered. You don't lie about that. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. This is the state of South Carolina versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, not the state versus David Owens, not versus Sled. And I want to tell you something. Sled, Walterboro, Laura Rutland's working with David Owens. Sled starts working with the FBI. They're working together. This is, think about it. Rush to judgment. They gave that man every benefit of the doubt. Oh, what are y'all doing? How's it going? You remember that third interview when he was, David Owens said, well, and I submit to you, they're taking those interviews where he's trying to come find out what they've got on him. Well, why is this thing looking? How's this thing looking? Well, we've got some shell casings by Maggie's body out over there where y'all shot in the range, and some shots out there by the side of the house. The shell casings, they all came from the same gun, all cylindered in the same gun. You think if they didn't, they could find an expert to refute that, they would have? And Alex says, oh, really? So the gun was there? Yeah. You see his reaction? They all came from the same gun on Maggie. Now, the other one, Mr. Griffin tried to argue, Paul Greer, yeah, it could have come from that shotgun. Don't know. Is that credible evidence? But it could have. Not saying it did or didn't, but it certainly could have. He's got that gun. It's got Maggie's blood on it. Don't know if he used that or not. But I know the assault rifle's missing. And Will Loving comes from a fine family in Columbia. I can tell you that. Says we were down here not in March. It was more like May or April or May. We were shooting his gun on the side of the house in those shell casings. That's where they found it. And lo and behold, the shell casings match the shell casings around Maggie. They were all cylinder in the same gun. They came out of the same gun. They've been in the same gun. Yes, Mr. Waters is right. That's a family-owned gun. And is that incredible, circumstantial, and direct evidence? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. It is. That's powerful. You can feel it like the rain. The murderers come in. There'll be a gun there. We'll just use their gun. Does that make any sense? Y'all too young. You ever watch Columbo? When I first looked at this case, this is an episode of Columbo, except this is real. And you get to see one of my heroes, the detective, didn't always look that good, wasn't all that, but you got to see the crime, and then you got to see him figure it out, and the mistakes they made. And that's what happened here. He killed him. He thought he could get a timeline, but it got him. Within 20 seconds, he's texting Maggie on that phone when he's passing the location of her phone. Is it common sense? He threw that phone out, called her, and threw it. And the orientation didn't go on. They said, if you pick it up, yes. And we had somebody come in here, you throw it rough, and it doesn't come on. And what are the chances it's anything else? He'd almost had to bump into him. And you take this new story, I was down there till 8:50, whatever, go and take a quick nap, come back. He didn't hear the shots, just happens to come back. And common sense, don't leave it with you. Take it back there with you. I'm down there now. My wife told me this. I'm down there under this new story, and the deal was to come talk, go see my mama at 9:30. And you're right down there. You've just seen them now. Well, you said before we hadn't even seen them. Don't forget that. And you go up to the house. Why don't you say, hey, Max, I'm going to go see Mom real quick. Just a few minutes later. No. You go up there. You take a quick nap. You know what? I'm going to try to call them. Let them know I'm going down. Does that make any sense? And then when you get to the why, You'll see the light. When y'all went out there yesterday, those trees are much lower. Go back in and look at the way it was.
Talking about the jury view.
And I think even Buster said, when you get down there, if the light's on, you can see. Why don't you just go right over there? Hey, I ain't going down there. No, doesn't hear anything, doesn't do anything. He just takes off. He just takes off. Does that make any sense? We've proved that nobody else could. With that kind of mind. Does it matter when he's rushing back? Yeah. I doubt he's ever killed 2 people before. So he's not thinking, he's frantic. Puts the wrong 2 shells in the gun. Coming back, he's got Maggie's phone. It had been sitting there. That's why the steps weren't on there. He's moving. He gets it. I can't take this phone with me. He's a lawyer, so he tosses it out. That's the only thing that makes sense. And what did he say about Paul's phone? When we went up there, I started to get, I didn't know I got it out, and then it kind of just popped out too. Does that make any sense? You got to evaluate everything. You can't believe somebody's credible one thing. How can you believe them on the ultimate issue when they said they didn't? When the only thing they corroborated for you throughout the investigation, throughout this trial, and throughout Mr. Waters' cross-examination is he's a liar. And that's all you can judge people on. The 3 witnesses that were beautiful, that were uncontroverted. And one was Paul. He didn't testify to you up on the stand, but he testified to Dr. Raymer, and he testified to his family. And here's so beautiful of evidence. It's so pure.
Dog, here we go. Well,
He didn't know he took that video. That's why he said he wasn't down there. And this is beyond all that. We respectfully submit. Paul knew. Dad, I got some insurance. I got some insurance. Not the kind of insurance you've made money off of. An insurance some clients you gave back and some you didn't. I've got some insurance on you. I don't know why you killed me. I made some mistakes. You heard a lot of good things about Paul too. I know I put your life, open your life, your fake life with this boat case. Your finances are coming out. I know that. But if you go lie and say you weren't down here, I got you. I don't know when it'll come out. Maybe you'll go ahead and lie. But this is going to come out. Paul had that insurance on it. Maybe that's why he was worried about that phone. And you can't make that up.
yep.
You remember when I asked David Owens, does anybody else in the world know that that video was out there except Paul? No, sir. And that's incredible evidence. And it did sit there until law enforcement working together, the states, the local, SLED, everybody, got it out. And that's great law enforcement. Thank you. Yes, and that's when the case changed, along with all the other evidence. Maggie testified to you. He shot me here. He shot me here. And look at all the shell cases around me. Y'all look at them. They're the same ones that Will Loving shot with Paul. They're the same ones that have been shot down there. Yeah. They came out of the same gun. That's great direct and circumstance. And finally, and my daughter-in-law, Sally, and my Aunt Sissy still calls my dad Jack this. My daughter-in-law been married about 3 months, one of the happiest days of my life, because they were happy. They were watching that kennel video. She and her dog Tater. And when Bubba started to bark, that's what my aunt calls him, dead Bubba. Tater barked. And Sally said, isn't it something that your best witness in here are the dogs?
Yep.
You know, some people say they got a 6th sense. You think Bubba knew?
I do.
You think Bubba knew something? You got Alex to say something. Bubba! Thank God for Bubba.
Yep.
DNA, and that DNA, when people live together, you'll have it all over your shirt.
Bubba is the reason why Alex spoke on that video.
DNA, in this case, that dog negates all.
Yep.
Thank you, Bubba.
Thank you, Baba.
And guess where Bubba is now? Bubba's with Blanca.
Blanca.
Bubba's with Blanca. You can't make that up. And that puts him down there. And that's the lie he told and told and told. I went down there. Why aren't y'all doing something, law enforcement? Why aren't you telling us you were down there? Why aren't you telling us you were down there? Respond to his phone, as Mr. Griffin said, it would show that he was going to Malmina. He had to get rid of that phone. He had to get rid of it there. Finally, it's about your greatest power. My dad gave it to me when I was young. He said, read it. Your greatest power. You know what it is? Your greatest power is your power to choose. Choice. We've all got it. We're born with it. We use it every day. We use it when we treat people, whether we say, hey, where we're nice, whether we forgive people. We make good decisions. We make bad decisions. But what my dad always told me, don't blame anybody else. If you make a good choice, that's good. Don't get too cocky. Be humble, but that's good. But if you make a bad choice, you're responsible for it. There are consequences. It's your greatest power. And for whatever was going on in his mind, his world's collapsing. It's coming down. All these worlds coming down financially. He's confronted that day by somebody's law firm. Where's this check? He's got another hearing coming up. It's a motive. Don't have to have it. But yes, there. And is this rational? When he said that, is that rational? Was it rational to be on the side of the road and claim you're shot? And when you're in the ambulance, and go watch this if you need to, and you're talking to the officer in the ambulance, and you say, what happened? Oh, by the way, he wanted to kill himself. He called 911.
Right.
He called 911. When he told the officer in the ambulance, well, what happened? Well, some guy shot me. He even did a sketch. He faked the sketch.
Crazy.
But what did he tell the guy in the ambulance? It sounded like a shot.
Yep. Great point.
He's trying his world, and he says there in that last interview with the call-in interview, Mr. Harpootney and Mr. Griffin, what you got in there. Ryan, I'm sorry, I lied about everything. I was under a lot of pressure, had a lot going on. Really? Your wife and your son were murdered 3 months ago, and now this is the real Alex. Well, my world's coming down. My world, Alex's world is coming down. Been confronted by his law partners. Losing his job. Now it's me. My world's being affected. Not about that, but now. I'm sorry I lied. I've lied about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh loved, I think he loved me. I think he loved Paul. But you know who he loved more than that?
There you go.
You know who he loved more than that? And who he's going to make sure that life, wanted to make sure that life, he loved Alex. And he exercised his greatest power of choice to make sure that life continued or try. And it couldn't. And now, ladies and gentlemen, after his honor charges you, you're going to go back there and exercise your greatest power.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the evidence you've heard, the evidence you haven't heard, the credibility, the believability of the witnesses, and especially of Richard Alexander Murdaugh, who has lied and lied and lied and lied. And it's been okay. It got you through. It stops here. We respectfully request it stops here today. No, it's not okay. And we're going to exercise our greatest power and find you guilty of killing Maggie and Paul. Thank you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard the evidence and you have heard the closing arguments. Next up will be jury charge and then your deliberations. We're at lunchtime. We're going to take a break.
So we're going to skip ahead. We've covered jury instructions on the full gavel to gavel. So we're going to skip ahead I think maybe the verdict and sentencing are a different video. Let's see if this is jury instruction.
Opinion are not,
Okay, that's jury instructions still.
you will have these 4 indictments.
Okay, while I'm going to pull up the verdict and sentencing while he reads this.
And on the back of each indictment is a place for verdict. And each one, as to each one, you write your verdict, either not guilty or guilty, then sign and date the verdict. You're not authorized to write the verdict until all of you have agreed on the verdict. Now, in just a minute, I will send you to the jury room. But prior to doing so, I want to ensure that from the 12 jurors we have remaining, if there is any reason that any one of you cannot continue deliberating, please let me know at this time. We have 13 jurors, only 12 can deliberate. So out of the first 12 jurors now on the panel, if there are any reasons why you cannot continue, please let me know at this time before I excuse the alternate. A show of hands as to anyone who cannot continue deliberating. All jurors then seem to be in good shape and good to go. So when the jury leaves the courtroom, the alternate will remain. And the alternate is. I will send you to the jury room, all of you, except for the alternate, but do not begin deliberations until you have received a copy of this jury charge, the indictments, and the exhibits. Once you receive these things, that will be your signal to begin your deliberations. Once you begin deliberations, you will deliberate until you have reached a verdict, at which time you will knock on the door, advise the bailiff, and we will bring you out to receive your verdict. So if all of you will now go to the jury room except for the alternate.
Okay, and so now we're going to get to the deliberations in this trial were 2 hours and 50 minutes, so less than 3 hours. So now we're going to hear the verdict. Here we go. So same day.
Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdict, starting with the back, not with the, let's see, tell you again.
Here's the verdict,
Starting
guys.
with the back, flipping them over one by one. State of South Carolina versus.
Here's Miss Becky.
Docket number 2022 GS 15-00592, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions in the term of 2022, July, the State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Okay. Guilty verdict, signed by the forelady, 3/2/23. Docket number 2022 GS 15-00593, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, in the Court of General Sessions, the July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant, indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116, verdict guilty, signed by the forelady, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022-GS15-00595, the State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code -16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549, verdict guilty, signed by the foreperson of the jury, date 3/2/23. Docket number 2022 GS-15-00594. The State of South Carolina, County of Colleton, Court of General Sessions, July term 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. SC Code 16-23-0490. CDR Code 0549. Verdict guilty. Signed by the foreperson of the jury, 3/2/23.
Thank you. Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is the verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hands. All right, thank you. Any individual polling requested? Madam Clerk, you'll need to individually poll the jury according to their juror numbers.
Number 193. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 254. Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 326. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 530. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 544.
Yes.
Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 572. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 578. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 589. Was this your verdict? Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 630. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 729. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 826. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Juror 864. Was this your verdict?
Yes.
Is it still your verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor, the jury has been polled.
Thank you. The jury has been polled and the verdict is a unanimous verdict. If you will bring the alternate juror out and have her have a seat in the audience, please.
Okay. So, well, what happens after that is you hear them discuss, it got cut off for whatever reason, but sentencing, which in South Carolina, they go straight into it. So it's like 15-minute break and then straight into sentencing, which is what we're going to watch next.
Be seated.
Good morning.
At this point, it's like 7 p.m. or something like that.
Parties ready to proceed?
Bench is ready, Your Honor.
All right, from the state, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're obviously here in the sentencing for the state versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh. Your Honor, I have prepared the sentencing sheets signed up. If I can hand those up to the clerk. Your Honor, very quickly, the defendant has no prior record, and the state has no victim impact people who want to speak at this time. But I will address the court briefly. And I don't need Your Honor to repeat the evidence that Your Honor just heard for the past 6 weeks, but it is overwhelming. And it shows this man to be a cunning manipulator, a man who placed himself above all others, including his family. A man who violated the trust of so many, including his friends, his family, his partners,
They've already
his
got
profession.
him. They've already got him changed into even though it was like a 15-minute break, they already put him in his jumpsuit.
But most of all, Maggie and Paul. This is a very complicated situation, and I want to offer my condolences to the family that has suffered here. We have tried very hard to be respectful and sensitive regardless of what position any person took, because this family has suffered and they've had to suffer in the public eye. And I want to offer my condolences to this family. I want to offer it for Maggie and Paul and Mr. Randolph too, who I had the pleasure of working with on one occasion. But the reality remains is that despite all this attention, this case is about Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh, and I'm so thankful that the jurors gave them a voice. You heard about Paul. Obviously, there was the boat case, but you also heard him described as a fun-loving young man, a person who loved life, a person who would do anything for his friends, for anyone. And he's cut down as he was just starting to live his life. You heard about Maggie. You heard how sweet she was. You heard that she was a girl's girl who adapted to the outdoorsman life of her sons, how much she loved her sister and her brother-in-law and their children. And she was cut down in the prime of her life. Both of them, like everyone else, was unaware of who he really was. No one who thought they knew this man, no one who thought they were close to this man knew who he really was. And Your Honor, that's chilling. And I've looked in his eyes, and he liked to stare me down as he would walk by me during this trial. And I could see the real Alex Murdaugh when he looked at me. The depravity, the callousness, the selfishness of these crimes are stunning. The lack of remorse and the effortless way in which he lies, including here sitting right over there in this witness stand.
Angel, I have nice things about you.
A man like that, a man like this man, should never be allowed to be among free, law-abiding citizens again. And I would submit to you that the only just sentence here to give justice for Maggie and Paul is the maximum, and that would be 2 consecutive life sentences. Thank you, Your Honor.
You indicate that no victim would like to speak at this time. Would any victim like to speak at any time during these proceedings?
Your Honor, one of the things we did, and we did early on, obviously, as I just said, it's a very complicated situation, but we made the decision early on. We've had our victim advocate here who's been doing a wonderful job, regardless of the viewpoints of any individual family member, to provide aid and service to them, and we made that decision. I'm informed by our victim advocate that none of them wish to speak. The defense can certainly address that, but that's what I am informed. But they certainly were offered the opportunity as is required, and I want to commend our victim advocate on the excellent job she did in handling this complex situation that we wanted to be sensitive to, because again, none of us are not mindful of the fact of the suffering of this family.
I noticed Sled Chief Mark Keel is here. Would you like to address the court on any matters, Chief?
No, sir. Just to say again, very proud of our agents, the work they've done, and proud of the partnership that we've had with the Attorney General's office as we've had for many years. And again, we're here to see the justice is served, and we believe it has been.
Thank you. For the defense.
Your Honor,
Oh,
Mr. Griffin and I would have no comment. The defendant would like to address the court, though.
oh, I forgot about this. I kind of, oh my God,
Good morning, Your Honor.
lost it out. Here we go.
I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife Maggie, and I would never hurt my son Pawpaw.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Great. Wow.
Sit down.
Spoken from the heart, not
Anything further?
incredible. Now Judge Newman's going to say his.
I don't think further comment is necessary, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Murdaugh, you have
Wow. Well said.
come to
Creighton.
the court for sentencing.
Okay. Let's go. Judge Newman. There you go, Heather. This is back saying, I believe.
This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for me as a judge, for the state, for the defense team, but for all of the citizens in this community, all the citizens in this state, and as we have seen based on the media coverage there throughout the nation. You have a wife who's been killed, murdered, a son savagely murdered, a lawyer, a person from a respected family who has controlled justice in this community for over a century, a person whose grandfather's portrait hang at the back of the courthouse that I had to have ordered removed in order to ensure that a fair trial was had by both the state and the defense. And I've sat through the trial. Not only have I sat through the trial, but also as the presiding judge of the state grand jury, sat through and participated in the issuance of search warrants of various sorts, bond hearings, and have had to consider many things. And we have this case, and I'm also assigned to preside over, is it 99 others? At least.
It gets bumped up to 101 by the time he has his
99 other cases.
financial crimes.
Though testimony has come up regarding many of those other cases, I will not make any comment with regard to any other pending matter, as I have been assigned those cases as well. It's also particularly troubling, Mr. Murdaugh, because as a member of the legal community and a well-known member of the legal community, you've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various occasions throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And you've engaged in such duplicitous conduct here in the courtroom.
So this is a front and back of the hand spanking from Judge Newman.
Here on the witness stand. And as established by the testimony throughout the time leading from the time of the indictment and prior to the indictment throughout the trial to this moment in time. Certainly,
Aisha.
you have no obligation to say anything other than saying not guilty. And obviously, as appeals are probably expected or absolutely expected, I would not expect a confession of any kind. In fact, as I've presided over murder cases over the past 22 years, I have yet to find a defendant who could go there,
Wow.
who could go back to that moment in time when they decided to pull the trigger or to otherwise murder someone. I have not been able to get anyone, any defendant, even those who have confessed to being guilty, to go back and explain to me what happened at that moment in time.
Wow.
When they opted to pull the trigger, when they opted to commit the most heinous crimes known to man. In this case, qualifies under our death penalty statute based on the statutory aggravating circumstances of 2 or more people being murdered by the defendant by one act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. I don't question at all the decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct.
Yep.
Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled?
Tangled web, we weave.
Yep.
Oh, what tangled web we weave. What did you mean by that?
Meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury because they've concluded that you continued to lie and lied throughout your testimony. And perhaps with all the throng of people here, they, for the most part, all believe, or 80, 90%, 99% believe that you continue to lie now when your statement of denial
Except for Twiz.
to the court.
Twiz is the lone person that believes him.
Perhaps you believe that it does not matter, that there's nothing that can mitigate a sentence given the crimes that were committed. You know, a notice of alibi was filed in this case by counsel in November, and we conducted a hearing, pretrial hearing, in which you claimed to have been someplace else at the time the crime was committed. Then, after all of the witnesses placed you at the scene of the crime, at the last minute, or last minutes or days, you you switch courses and admitted to being there. And then that necessitated more lies and continued to lie. And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you and concluded that it'll never end. But within your own soul, you have to deal with that.
Mm.
And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you. I'm sure.
All day and every night.
What a dude right here. You know how Judge Newman meant this, right? And then Alex is like, all day and every night. Jesus
I'm
Christ.
sure. And they will continue to do so. And reflect on the last time they looked you in the eyes, as you looked the jury in the eyes. I don't know person who's always been such a gregarious, friendly person and cause your life to be tangled in such a web, such a situation that yours have spun into. And it's so unfortunate because you had such a lovely family of such friendly people, including you. And to go from that
Poor
to
Buster
this.
and John Marvin.
Your license to practice law has been stripped away from you. You turned from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer. And it's it's really surprising that you're waiving this right at this time. And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything, but you have the opportunity to do so.
Judge, I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent.
Oh my
I
God.
would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Paul.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been.
I mean, and that's exactly what he said a few minutes ago, but it's like, he's not even saying I didn't kill them, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys can tell. I would not ever, so it's hypothetical, and hurt, not kill. Anyway. Crazy head.
The monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60
70, 80, 100, a million.
opioid pills. Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before.
Not with those numbers.
The person standing before me was not the person who committed the crime, though it's the same
Those
individual.
numbers, that person would not be standing because they would be dead. But yeah.
We'll leave that at that. Before announcing sentence on these cases, with regard to all of the other pending cases, are any of them here in Colleton, or I'm sure some of them are? Half of them, or?
Oh, TV.
I don't have that in front of me, but there are a substantial number of charges here. There's some in Hampton, Orangeburg, Beaufort, Allendale. There may be others I'm not thinking of right now.
We might have worn out our welcome here in Colleton. They have been, and I'll take this opportunity to thank Sheriff Hill and all of the court officials and really everyone I've met and dealt with while here in Colleton County. Just been great. But without any delay, we're going to schedule some of the other matters. I know Mr. Harpootlian's scheduling is complicated and you sacrifice quite a bit to be able to be here defending Mr. Murdaugh, as well as the Attorney General's office, with all the other many things and obligations you have. And to be able to have the Attorney General here, Alan Wilson, for the period of time that he's devoted to being here, along with everyone else, it's been quite a sacrifice. But there are other victims whose cases deserve to be
There's
heard.
Tinsley in the gallery.
And this case has jumped some of those other cases. Perhaps jumped it because of this case resulting in an assault on the integrity of the judicial system in our state, law enforcement in our state. Even during this trial, the law enforcement have been maligned for the past 5 or 6 weeks by one who had access to
Hi, Leslie and Billy.
the wheels of justice, to be able to deflect the investigation. And as the evidence is pointed out in this case, the looming storm that Mr. Waters talked about, I can just imagine on that day, June 7th, when a lawyer is confronted and confesses to having stolen over $500,000 from a client. And he has a tiger like Mark Tinsley on his tail, pursuing discovery
Shout out to Mark Tinsley.
in the case involving the death of Mallory Beach. And having a father, for the most part, on his deathbed. I could imagine, I really can't imagine, but I know it had to have been quite a bit going through your mind on that day. But amazingly, to have you come and testify that it was just another ordinary day, that my wife and son and I were out just enjoying life. Not credible, not believable.
I agree.
You can convince yourself about it, but obviously you have the inability to convince anyone else about that.
It's a twist.
So if you made any such arguments as a lawyer, you would lose every case of that, like that.
Sick burn.
Cases you will never have an opportunity to argue anymore, except perhaps your own as you
Wow.
sit in the Department of Corrections.
That's right. Steps quiz.
Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for a term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive.
There it is.
Under the statute involving possession of a weapon during a violent crime, there is no sentence where a life sentence is imposed on other indictments. That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections. and officers may carry forth on the
Now,
imposition.
here he goes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we adjourn, an order was issued concerning maintaining the juror's identity being anonymous. That order was issued, and for the most part, it's been complied with, except for the jury leaving the courtroom yesterday, or not the jury, but the defendant leaving the courtroom while the jury is still seated. Protecting the identity of the jurors is certainly extremely important during the course of a trial to ensure that no one makes contact with the jury or attempts to influence the jury. Jurors have a right to continue that privacy beyond their jury service, but they're not obligated to do so. And it would not surprise me if jurors choose to come forward and to speak, and
A number of them did.
they're encouraged to do so if that is their desire. I have no problem whatsoever with the jurors unmasking themselves and speaking freely with the media, because they have undergone a life-changing experience and, as it relates to many of them. And some of them are here now, and I want them to know that should anyone attempt to harass them or annoy them, please let me know and I will address the issue. Secondly, there's a complaint now regarding the posting of autopsy photographs or photos
Right. This is the Becky Hill leaking thing.
that came from within the courtroom. It's based on the direction of the photographs. It did not come from the audience, came somehow from within the well of the court.
Wow, there it is.
The parties have requested an investigation of that. I have my hands full doing my job, and I don't attempt to conduct any investigations beyond the conducting of a trial. But to the extent that law enforcement decides to review that, that's will be the responsibility of law enforcement. Yes. And of course, one of the reasons we've sought to seal graphic photos is because the parties have a right to privacy and a right to those matters not being publicly disclosed. If anyone has heard about the recent settlement that Kobe Bryant's, another sports analogy, Kobe Bryant's wife just made with Los Angeles County and others out there over certain disclosures of information involving the death of Kobe Bryant. Liability can be substantial, and it's a risk for the most part that's not worth taking. So we'll let everyone judge themselves accordingly with that regard. Aside from all that, our business is done here in Colleton County.
There it is, guys.
And I get to use my gavel one or few times during this trial, and
there it is.
Order that court be adjourned. Signing down.
Aww. Bang the gavel. There it is, guys. So there you have it. So up next for Murdaugh, we will be watching the evidentiary hearing from January of 2024. That might be tomorrow, more than likely. And then we will be finishing up part 3 of his appeal. And of course, all this is as we have the ongoing shenanigans with Becky Hill having just been charged and arrested and posted bail for her crimes, some of which related directly to this trial. So that was, did the audience clap? I didn't hear the audience clap, but that was banging the gavel. That might be what you heard. There was a real banging of the gavel. Let's watch that again, because we don't usually see them actually ever.
We use my gavel one or few times during this trial and order that court be adjourned. Sunny day.
Did he say sunny day at the end? Right after the bang? I didn't hear clapping. I could be wrong.
Order that court be adjourned. Sunny day.
Oh, no, you're right. There is clapping. Holy shit. You're right, Heather. There is clapping. Doesn't surprise me. Wow. Holy shit. No, I think there was, no, there's no chairs though. They're all in pews like a church. Makes sense. Oh my God. Yeah, there was some clapping. Not everybody, but definitely some clapping. That is so funny. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. There you have it, guys. They clapped for the show. They sure did. They surely did. So that'll be it for this one, guys. We will be back. Like I said, I think it'll probably be tomorrow, unless we get if we get some new docs coming out in other cases. But if we don't, we will be back tomorrow for the evidentiary hearing with Miss Becky and all the jurors, and it's insane. Yeah, I certainly would have clapped. I would have been in the clapping bunch for sure, for sure. It deserved clapping. Clapping was appropriate. Like all said and done in one day, right? They finished closing arguments, and then with less than 3 hours deliberation, and then verdict, and then it goes to me. I don't even know how they had time to change Alex into his jumpsuit, but they had 15 minutes, and they somehow made that happen. So yeah, but thanks everybody for being here as always. Love you guys. Y'all are the best squirrels on the planet. Make sure you guys read the ingredients in your cough drops. No Borg cough drops here. We only have the natural kind, as it were. But that'll be it for this one. Love y'all, and squirrel out.